just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
I'll get it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we'll work it in.
I'll work it in.
Yeah, just work it in. Just work it.
Welcome.
Well, oh yeah,
Welcome. Yeah, this is the first episode.
Show. This is it.
This is a show right now. We're actually live.
Oh,
in
Well,
a
did we
podcast.
decide on the name? We decided on the name.
I'm glad that you brought this up. This is what I was going to bring up first, too.
3 averagely intelligent dudes discussing dangerous ideas. Do you like that name,
Yeah, I like
John?
the dangerous ideas part.
Yes, we had a whole conversation
Yeah.
about it last night. We wanted
Yeah,
to check
I
with
like
you,
that.
but
Yeah, okay, so he likes this. I like this. I love this.
I like
that name.
danger.
I love this.
I like
that name.
danger too. I have tattoos. You see all this danger?
I was like,
yo, this is a risky podcast. You don't know what's going to happen, but
It's risky.
You don't know what's
Yeah,
going
I say some scary things.
It's
sometimes.
scary. You know what? We even had a conversation about just how it's a really good word because the ideas are very dangerous too if you don't apply them properly or think them out fully for yourself, you know?
That's a really good point. If you don't think about the shit you're saying, and social media, you know, our current society wants you to just get that hot take out there. But if you don't think about what you're saying, if you don't examine all the angles,
It's dangerous.
It can be very dangerous.
Yeah, for us, indeed. But anyways, so welcome to 3
welcome.
averagely intelligent dudes discussing dangerous ideas. I love it.
I'm one of the dudes. I'm Mac.
I'm Rod. We're brothers.
I'm John. I'm not related in any way to the Sloan brothers. I am simply myself. I am John Allen.
My best friend.
All one word.
My
And I have
best
to
friend
explain
of
to
like
people.
10 years.
I always have to
Also,
explain. All one word. John Allen. Don't split it up. I'm not John. Don't call me Mr. Allen.
Mr. Allen.
it's all John Allen.
Mr. John
I've never
Allen.
actually,
John Allen.
I've never actually said your one of your names in
Yeah, why would you?
singularity. Except for
Why would
we
you?
had the conversation the other day that my kid's middle name is Allen after you. So that's fascinating. And then we're actually not the Sloan brothers.
We're not the Sloan.
Yeah, I told somebody
I mean,
that.
we're brothers.
I told
but
somebody
my
that.
name's not Sloan.
I had to correct someone on that the other day in a phone call. They were trying to what do I call it when is it the Sloan? I was like, no, not accurate actually.
Just brothers.
Not accurate.
Just the
And then I
brothers.
made the mistake myself.
It's the brothers.
It's the brothers. Just brothers.
It's the brothers.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Here we are.
In the middle
Yeah, we're
of
finally able to talk about all the stuff that we've been not talking about as we set up the first episode of the podcast.
in the middle or the end of a pandemic? I don't really know where we're
Oh,
at in the
that's
Well,
pandemic.
it looked like it
interesting
was
topic.
going to be the end of the pandemic, but then everybody decided to go and crowd the streets. And so I figure it's probably not going to be the end of the pandemic.
I think we're just getting started now.
I think here comes that round 2 they all talked about.
Facts. What about
Yeah.
you, John? Where you at with this? You think we're still in the middle?
I'm watching masses of people do things that they don't necessarily need to do, but that's for each person to kind of decide. Like everybody has their right to decide if they need to go get shoes at Payless Shoe Source or something. Like you get to
Yeah.
make that decision, you know.
How important it is.
But it's booming. Business is booming. Let's say that. Business is booming. I was driving around, a lot of business is booming. So if you want to make that money for Mr. McDonald's, you get out there.
Yeah,
you
like-
get that
like
business
people's-
booming.
Hey,
You get that
economics.
business booming, okay? Mr. Walmart needs his money.
Yo, but I mean, economics is a lot different than gathering in masses of 1,000. I don't know. Like, yo, like you said, I want my soccer back. Then, like, if we can protest, I want my sports back.
Yeah,
you have no idea.
I'll wear
You have
a
no idea
mask
how
and
bad.
we all pile up in
I'm
the
dying.
stadium and watch my
Dying,
shit.
dying for some soccer, bro. Dying
That's so
for it.
funny. But it's been tripping me out, bro. What's been tripping me out is how quickly we all just moved on. Which is like, it hasn't tripped me out because I called it.
We've been saying that from
I've
the
been
beginning.
saying from the start that it was only going to be one other tragedy, any topic to just pull us away from this immediately. But it's been blowing me away how fast it happened. But what I would love to figure out is, are the numbers supporting the activity? Like, now that everybody blew out their house and just every metropolitan area has been gathering by the masses, are we seeing a correlated spike in the numbers?
Well, I know
I haven't
that
heard anything about it.
just looking, I've only really looked mostly at my personal state, and it's like we have a numbers increase that has not ever stopped increasing. It's still curving in a sense. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like we're on a curve. and you're continuing to rise slightly on that curve. It's not rounded out completely, and we're in phase 2 of opening. So at the top of our curve, if you want to consider it that, if it doesn't keep rising, which it has every day, it's still rising, then if you're not at the top of the curve, what you're doing is just injecting the whole populace back in and say, you know what?
Right.
You've been good little boys and girls. You've been sitting inside. Don't you want some Chili's? You want some Fuddruckers? Get out there and get yourself some fried chicken.
Well, they were doing that slowly. I mean, like you said, how long were they going to stop us from doing that? Like,
I'm not saying they should stop.
realistically,
I mean, it's just, it's to me, it's this phase. We're phase 2 reopening is the term around here. And
Yeah.
it's whatever you want to
I've
do,
been
man.
keep
Go out
hearing
there,
this.
phase 2.
Oh, here, I want to clarify 2 things real quickly.
Yeah.
John, please tell the people what state you're in so that they're aware of it.
I'm in North Carolina, not South. We have 2 Carolinas.
is this important?
Get your
Is
geography.
this an important designation, North and
I
South?
don't know. I mean, North Carolina, we just.
I mean, they are
announced-
technically right next to each other, so I don't think so.
But it's like the Dakotas. You don't say that. You say North Dakota or South Dakota. It's like the Carolinas. People
Actually,
lump
you
it
just
together
called
as a
them the
big
The
ass-
Dakotas.
Carolinas, but
Yeah.
you hear the Carolinas.
Dakotas.
You don't hear the Dakotas. I never heard.
I hear that all the time.
Never heard that. Never heard this.
No, you hear North Dakota,
South Dakota. Yeah.
Nobody
I
talks
never
about
heard
the
something like
Dakotas.
that. I'm from the Dakotas.
I'm from the
Says they're
Dakotas.
from
The
but when
Dakota.
you
We got the
refer
Dakota
to the
Panthers.
Dakotas-
But you've
The
heard of
fuck
the
outta here.
Carolinas. You know, that's just.
I've heard of them both.
Oh, right. Well, he's heard of them both.
Either way, that was one thing, but I also want to clarify
Good designation.
that he is.
Where are you
on-
guys? Have you guys talked about where you are?
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're in LA.
Yeah, we're in the.
Oh, no big deal.
Yeah.
We're,
Well, we're in the valley, so
We're
we're
in
not
the
really in LA,
not
so
in
we're
Los-
safe.
We're in
Yeah.
Los Angeles, but we're in the valley.
We're in the valley.
Which is wild. It's always wild.
Yeah. Actually, right now it's a little bit less wild than other places you could be.
I believe that.
For once, for once in a very long time, Beverly Hills was more wild last night than Van Nuys was.
Yeah, homie was calling.
Yeah, our buddy lives in Beverly Hills, and he was saying that it was pretty bad.
worried.
He was worried. The National Guard. He was like, the National Guard's coming right now. Like he was like, it's like anarchy outside my window.
Beverly Hills.
In Beverly Hills. This is Beverly Hills, people.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Van
these
Nuys-
riots are popping off everywhere.
Van Nuys is chill, but
It's like 20
I haven't seen the numbers.
major American cities or something.
But that's my point. So I haven't seen the numbers rise. Like now, I've been anecdotally tracking these numbers. Okay, I haven't not been plotting them on a graph or anything. But I've been paying attention. You know, at least once. That's about as far as I've tracked the coronavirus. About once every day or so, I go and I see the numbers because I've always been like, yo, everything's cool. It's all fine. It's just we can't wake up one day and it be like 20 million. If the shit just blows up overnight one day, then everybody gonna turn to shit immediately. Like, look, we already showed it. The littlest thing go wrong, everybody turning to shit. So I've been just making sure it ain't just, spiked on me in some way that's gonna cause mass hysteria. Mm-hmm. And so even now, like, that's the thing that's tripped me out. From the time that we started the lockdowns or quarantines or whatever to the time we've now moved to phase 2 reopening, it's raised 2 million people. I think when I started paying attention, it was at 3 million. We're at 6.5, so it's raised 3.5 million. Nominal? I mean, is that not such a thing? Is this nominal as fuck? Like, did we stop or start or do anything to these numbers? And then now that everybody's back out on the street and they're all just buddied up like this, some wearing masks, some not, some just doing whatever the fuck, I have yet to see this spike that I'm terrified of seeing. It's 2 days in. We're gonna see. Like somebody else said, we'll see next week. And I was like, I expect to see it next week. I hope. I don't hope to see it, but I expect to, or else I'm really about to start yelling, "Foul, foul."
Well, I think you also have to take into consideration the fact that probably not a lot of people are going to get tested right now. So when all of these people get injured in the riots, they'll go to the hospital and then they'll test them there, and that's when we'll know.
He says it's gonna take a week or two.
It's gonna take a week or two. Yeah, it's gonna take a while. But yeah, you're right. Like if we don't see the spikes and everything, then I think phase 2 might as well just be open the fuck up. Just everything's just go back to what you were doing.
It makes me wonder why we stopped in the first place. Even
well, I mean, we've been wondering about that the entire time.
That's my point.
They stopped
well,
everything at 100,000 people, and I was like, Really?
Because I don't think you can actually like sit there and say you have for factual proof knowledge to say like us locking down slowed the numbers down. Like you can assume it. Like I would assume that
Seems
in my
logical enough.
area, if the numbers are rising in my area, but they're rising slowly, as opposed to really exponentially fast, then I would think like, oh, we did something.
We did it.
And that's
Well,
that's what
honestly-
I saw in our area was that, okay, we're doing something to limit all this contact. And then it's like, good job limiting all that contact. As a bonus point, you get to go to Applebee's.
Yes. Well, I mean, and I think honestly, like people forget that that's what they told us that they wanted us to do. Like it was all about flattening the curve. Like we were just supposed to be staying in so that the hospitals didn't get overrun. I didn't hear about any hospitals getting overrun. As a matter of fact, hospitals were going out of business because there was nobody
They
in
were
there.
sending the beds back.
They were like, we don't need them anymore.
This
We
is
were
too
cool.
much shit, man. We're good. It's wild. It's like they called the National Guard in too in LA and all this stuff, and none of that panned out. And so my point is, I bought into that narrative hard. Not really hard. Actually, like you said, I've been kind of counter that
Skeptical of
narrative
it.
the whole time. But I was with, like you said, I had no proof that this was true or not. So I'm like, yo, like John said, if I see the numbers slowly increasing, that's what's expected. Thank God we're distancing, or else we'd be seeing a dramatic jump in numbers, right? Okay, fine. All of a sudden now, George Floyd protests. Boom.
Yeah,
Everybody
now you
just
have
came
20
out
major cities with protests.
with protests and hundreds of people rubbing shoulder to shoulder doing the complete and utter opposite. It's ridiculous on the 180 that we've done.
Think about this. The people that are protesting, right? If you would assume that some percentage of them, I don't know how much it would be, don't have health insurance because they're unemployed. And maybe that's leading to them out there in the streets as well. If you're on unemployment, maybe you filed and haven't received benefits, or you just got your Trump bucks and that's, you got a new phone,
Or you're
whatever.
outraged.
You're out there fucking protesting or whatever, right? Like,
You're outraged.
yeah, it's crazy to think that that might contribute to all of this, is that
Well,
they don't have and they don't, then when they get sick, if they get sick, they don't have that health care. So it's like if you start coughing or have a fever, you're going to go try to get some Theraflu or something, or try to do something from over the counter because you don't have a job, which means you don't have health care. So if these people are unemployed and protesting in the streets and they don't have jobs, that means they don't have doctors to see them for the most case.
But you don't know
if they got. No, I'm just saying some number of them. It's not all of them. I'm sure there's
I
plenty
mean,
of
I'd
privileged
say
people
that's
in
a
that
fair
crowd.
assumption to make.
no, I hear
But
you.
it's a fair number of them, I would say too. And it's like, if you think about it from that angle, now those people, if they get sick, if they get COVID-19, they're not gonna go if it's weak symptomatic, like asymptomatic, weak ass fucking, I got a cough for a couple days. They're just gonna power through that shit. And maybe they don't have lung problems, so they just power through that shit. So you got to think there's numbers there that aren't counted to some aspect of people that just don't have health insurance.
Yeah. Well, well, that's my point. It's in search of justice for one man. If you do, I'm not a coronavirus, but like I'm not into corona. Like I'm not saying it's fake. I'm just saying it's like, it happens. That's what I'm saying. Like, shit happens out here. That's kind of my stance on a lot of this stuff, right? It's like, shit happens out
shit
here.
happens out here. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
shit's
Like,
wild.
shit happens out
The
here.
universe
It's
is
not
wild as
nice.
fuck. Shit
It's-
happens.
It's not
Yeah.
pretty. It's not cute. It's not fun. It's none of that. But shit does happen. And so that's what I was like with this virus. But then everybody was like, yo, no, this is a really big deal. So I don't know. But if I'm going to buy into that narrative, and if it's as dangerous as you say it is, you just got justice for one man at possibly hundreds of thousands of deaths.
Yeah.
And it's like,
People were just telling us a week or
I'm
two
lost.
ago that we were irresponsible for not
Right.
social distancing.
That's what I'm saying.
But people in New York are rioting.
right.
Wasn't New York like New York was like the hotbed? That was like that was like the thing. Like we all need to help New York. Like New York's getting destroyed, and here these motherfuckers are in the middle of the goddamn street.
But
hundreds of them.
oh my God, that's what's blowing me away, bro. This is the thing that's scaring me, John. This is the thing that's scaring me more and more. It's criminal. It's downright criminal to have a differing viewpoint right now. Like,
Yeah,
if
You're
that's-
not allowed to.
I don't
you
like that.
say,
Yeah.
like,
that.
coronavirus is not real, you're dead. But then
Not to mention just taking the wrong side of an issue that social media has deemed your side is this, their side is that. If you pick the wrong side, you're like, fuck.
Facts.
Now
You are
I'm in
like-
now I'm completely ousted from my groups. I need to change my social culture now. It's like, nah,
This
you just
idea-
obey. You just say, okay, you're right. Target, just, they don't deserve that.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean?
Okay.
You say, like, if you try and stand up to opposition of any of these ideas, you're automatically deemed a racist or a criminal or a terrorist or whatever. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me, and it's scary. This idea that if you're silent, you're the bad guy?
Yeah, that's another one.
What? Like, the fact that I don't want to offer my opinion on this situation makes me a part of the problem? The fuck is that?
Yeah, you're contributing to the culture.
Somebody
Didn't you know?
posted that. They were like,
Didn't you know?
They not only said that if you were quiet, like if you didn't speak out against racism, you were like helping racism, but that you were racist. And I was like, what? I have to tell you I'm not a racist so that you think that I'm not a racist?
That's scary, bro. That's scary.
I have a question for you then. Like I've as a white guy been in positions I can think of within the past years of my life, in the not too distant past, where another white guy has said a hard R in front of me, and it happened so kind of blasé. They were like talking about shoplifters, and they were like bitching, and I was like, man, whatever, man. They fucking just rolled out with all that shit. Fuck, man, that sucks, or something like that. Because I was working in like the grocery industry, and this guy, he says some shit like, oh yeah, they're just N-words, bro, and he drops a hard R, and I just like didn't say anything for like 30 seconds. And just didn't fuck with him. Yeah, it's the Carolinas, right? So I just didn't fuck with him, right? And it just wasn't my type of dude anymore. I didn't fuck with him.
Yeah, fine.
Play games.
I wouldn't fuck with him either.
And I'm saying though, like, am I now a racist because I didn't say, hey,
because you, hey, buddy,
listen here, Buster. You listen here, Buster Bear. Don't you say those hard R's.
We don't tolerate shit like that around here. We don't want people around us.
If you listen to rap music and drop an A, I'm not gonna beat you up, but
it's up to you as a common citizen to stop any crime you see committed anywhere. So next time I see somebody robbing or knocking off a gas station, if every single motherfucker doesn't run over there and beat him up, I'm yelling all of them as accomplices. All of you accomplices to this fucking theft. None of y'all beat this dude up.
Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't in certain cases like stand up for someone's rights. I'm saying like that was white person to half Paraguayan person. I'm a white person too, so it's like he's just casually dropping it, and maybe to see if I'm cool with it. I don't know.
Maybe feeling you out.
But I just very obviously wasn't cool with it. But I didn't fucking put him against the wall or nothing.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, I was like, ooh,
of white people too. Like I don't like this. Like, do people forget? It's only like 100 or 200 years ago that white people were just slaughtering each other all over Europe. Like Italians killing fucking British people. Like they hated it. British and France killing each other. Yeah, like all these people are what we call white now.
Dying of famine.
And I'm like,
and this idea that like,
and that was racism.
Hold on now, too. This idea that rich white people just like love poor white people or something. Like rich white people.
No,
right?
No. Clarify that.
White people. My white brother.
No.
Joey
Sonic. They're not with their hand down. Let me pick you up, brother. You look like you need a hand.
No, it's not about it.
Nobody gives a flying fuck with the color.
I just don't think so. Not in the millennial age. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been growing up. I'm 32 years old now. I'm about to be 33. I've been growing up in this time. I met a lot of people along my way. I've heard of racist people. I know that they are out there.
Yeah.
But they were not in my schools. They were not around me. I'm half black, half white. My kid now is half black, half white, half Mexican, half Filipino. So yeah, exactly, right? Add that up. And she looks white. So it's just like, what does any of this even matter anymore to us, But I think that common narratives get perpetuated over and over and over. Same thing I talk about all the time about communism versus fucking capitalism. Like old, bro. Old.
I was talking about workers' rights. I was talking about workers' rights, and somebody was like, "Yeah, in my country, they would just call you a communism. That's or a communist. That's some communism." And I was like, "Really?" Yeah. I was like, "Rights for workers."
People love to call people Nazis, communists, racists. I'm like, can y'all just get more creative? This is it's not 1962
new,
anymore.
yeah.
Like we
I
have
love
all
breaking
kinds of
those
new
isms
evils
up,
out here,
bro.
all kinds of new dangerous labels to slap on
Yes.
people. Like,
Let's smash
new
all
shit.
those old isms.
Now,
Let's,
I do want to give some credit to the actual issue though, because there is an issue at hand, which is that disproportionately in our country, the black people are the poor people. And that's what I keep trying to tell people. This is my stance on it. This is not a race issue. This is a socioeconomic issue. They don't hate you because you're black. They hate you because you're poor.
It's because you're poor.
Like our capitalistic society does not value being broke.
Nobody hates Jay-Z.
Nobody hates Jay. That's what I said. Like what's his name said? Lil Wayne said, "Hey, I'm
rich
Kanye
and
West.
black."
Kanye West trying to tell you, he's like, look, bro, I'm not like y'all, okay? I'm big chilling over here. I got hella
America's working for me. I don't
It
know
is.
about
It's
y'all.
doing its thing for them. So the real problem, and that's the thing that's scary and sucks to me, is the issue gets conflated, so nobody actually does anything to help. You know, we're over here fighting about hate, and everybody's like, I don't hate. Now, again, like we talked about with the environment one time, the environmental protest that happened not even just a couple weeks or months ago, right? What if every one of those people that protest went and mentored a black child? Went into a black neighborhood and met somebody, started a softball league, donated some money, anything, you know what I mean? What if all those people who are outraged went and did something effective in a black community to help them in their socioeconomic status? Boom. Instantaneous change. That's probably 100,000 people. If each one of them gave $10, you just raised $1 million for young black kids under franchise. I don't care whoever's disfranchised, because we're all disfranchised. Somebody's disfranchised. You're white, you're black, you're Mexican.
everybody's
whatever.
got some little victim points that they're collecting in a little victim sack.
Everybody got them somewhere, right? That's life. Yeah, that's life in general. This idea that everybody's like there's a perfect somebody living like the ideal out here is crazy to me. Rich people got hella problems too, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think you're very right to point out that it's a class issue at heart. I think
it is.
I think saying race has nothing to do with it's crazy, because race, has to do with everything.
The history of it, for sure, was built on the race.
Yeah, that's another good point that I wanted to bring up too, is like if you look at the history of African Americans, like black people brought to America, it's like 250 years of slavery, then you got like 80 something years of Jim Crow laws and segregation and don't drink my water.
Yeah,
and then you got how many years of equality?
Well,
If you could call it equality, how many years would you say? Like
40 years?
60
40 years?
40,
Well,
60?
because
Like,
it was Reconstruction. So, and then
I mean, 1960s and 70s,
60s?
right? When we see the revolutions and the new civil rights laws, and then it's only 2020, so that's like 60 years.
So we haven't even
That's my
got
point.
past.
So you're still living in the echoes of it. I'm with that. You know what I mean? I'm with that conversation. And here's the analogy I keep using. You send a man to prison right now in the society that we live in right now. You send him to prison for 20 years, and then you just let him go. Yeah, great. He's out of prison now, but this doesn't mean he's somehow about to be like, he's going to go start a multi-million-dollar business or some shit, or he has some type of skill where he's about to hop out here and just become like extremely valuable to his community. He's been locked away with no education, no nothing, right? And so the idea
he's been in the rat utopia for fucking
Facts.
20 years,
Facts.
where his brain is completely addled.
Facts.
And that's not normal.
It's not right. It's not. And then my point is that's our version of assimilation, though. Is like, hey, we let you go. You know?
Yeah.
You're back. You got your freedom
free now.
There it is. And so
That's a very good point.
Go ahead.
I have something that relates to that, because recently on one of the TV shows, and I'll have to get the source, but I think it's like one of the America's Got Talents or something, the guy was singing, and it was like, he was wrongly imprisoned for 20 years or 40 years or some shit like that. Like, I don't have the direct source right here, but it's like he's in prison for a long time unjustly, and then he's free, but look, he's singing in front of these people now. So the big story is, look how great this guy sings. And I'm like, big story for me is, guy was unjustly fucking put in prison for an extended period of time. Let's go ahead and talk about that injustice. Why did that injustice occur? Was it this or that? Like, instead we're like, look, but he can sing good. 20 years in jail. Was he singing the whole time? Practicing in a cell? Oh.
But see, that's the thing.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like the whole story was about like, man, just look at this uplifting story. This
Look how
guy's
he-
singing. And I was
came
like,
out
no,
better than
that's a fucked up story, and I feel terrible for that guy,
Wow,
bro.
this man could have been amazing.
This
But I
poor
did.
man, he could have died in prison, and then a free man that got picked up by the law,
Yeah.
who ain't done nothing damn wrong
Yeah.
in his whole life,
Yeah.
drug up to the police station, said, "Boy, you killed that girl."
Yeah.
Whatever it is, man, and it's just you're gone forever. Hey, you got
completely-
disappeared into the system,
Hence why
never
I
to be
say
the
I'm
same
scared
again.
of cops in general, because they'll just roll up on you and just rob you of every right you have for no reason. Be like, Jim, we got a vacation this weekend, bro. Like, we need to get this case solved now. It's like,
Yeah, hey, I
know,
need these.
bro.
Hey, I
We're
need
supposed
these
to go
points,
on
dog.
this fishing
It's a
trip.
point system, Jimmy. Yo, it's a point system,
Look
bro.
at
Let
this
me
guy
get
right
the-
here.
Yeah.
Let's just get. Don't this guy kind of look like that guy? Let's just get him. Yeah, let's just all get this guy.
I
Everybody
want
agrees
the
it's
three
this
of us.
guy, right? It's like
I want the
like
three
that.
of us to think for a second. Imagine yourself right now if you two were cops in a squad car and I pulled up in the other squad car with the canine and we're just chilling at the Sheets or the QT or something and we're looking at all these people. You know, you're telling me we're not. We're humans. We're smart. We're going to be like, that motherfucker high right there. You see him getting them zigzags? I bet you go into his car. Bet you go into his car. I bet you we could pull him over, get some drugs, and that would give us ticket points. All
Yeah.
you need is them ticket points, bro.
Yeah.
Write them little ticket points.
'Cause they're
Bro,
incentivized.
we're running that system. Soldier of the year, fucking.
The fact that you caught somebody out there gives you a little dopamine hit.
Oh yeah, it's
That
just
little
like
Instagram
likes
like.
on Twitter.
Very-
bro.
yeah, very
it's a
poor
little fucking
incentives.
little
Yeah.
Instagram point.
Very poor incentives in the policing, and that's my thing. Is like, don't get me wrong. There's lots of things wrong with the police systems in many states, almost all of them really. But I don't think like there's still an argument to be had that I think that the cops could be a good service if they operated well. Like, and they're a service that I could see
I
wanting
agree,
in
and
my
I don't
society.
think they should be. I just don't think they should be privatized. But I agree.
No,
wholeheartedly with the
I don't.
viewpoint. I just
don't
don't
like the idea
believe
of privatized
any.
cops either.
No,
I mean, I
don't
wouldn't privatize my
people.
military either, so I'm not.
I just don't like guns
force.
for hire,
It's
man.
all force.
Guns,
Yeah, 'cause that's
guns
the
for
force.
hire.
That's the problem.
That's
It's
just,
all force, and that sketches me. You got to be careful who you give force to.
Yeah.
Not power. You know, people earn power. You know, power's not something you're given, but force, on the other hand,
That's how they take it from you.
yeah.
yeah.
That's
You
how they
can
take it.
only give power
If you
unless
have
they
power,
use
they just take it
force.
by force.
So anything force related needs to be heavily protected. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I don't. But that's my problem. Is like we were talking about earlier. The idea that you don't have a fire force. You don't have a ambuletic force or whatever, a
Yeah,
medical
yeah.
force. You know,
Medic force.
The medic
Yeah,
force.
you're
come in. It's like, you know-
they don't roll
They're
up
not-
with M4s and shit,
They're not-
like,
Bro.
ready to kill
Bro,
somebody to
okay.
rescue
So
you.
I'm not necessarily making fun of the event, but like when they in one of the major cities rolled up on Tamir Rice, the kid in the park who had the toy gun, they shot from their moving police vehicle and killed him before their vehicle even stopped. Like that's how quick they were on that draw. You know what
Drive-by
I'm saying?
shooting.
So if you had the medic force,
Drive-by shooting. Yeah.
so if you had the medic force, they would roll up and they'd have the fucking syringes and shit, and they're coming in trying to
They're just
trank
gonna
you.
That's
shoot
what I
you
was
in the
saying.
neck with like.
I
They're
was
just
imagining
coming
them
in.
just like creeping around the block with like hella stray jackets in the back. Like,
Oh, ready
he
to
look
go.
Crazy.
Yep.
Don't that guy look
He
crazy?
look a little crazy. He
Let's
look a little
talk
crazy.
to
What's your
nobody.
what's your political
Talk to this
opinion?
guy,
Get
see
him.
how crazy he is. Hey, what's up, man? What you know about life? You a crazy man? Get him! Throw the jacket on him.
Don't jack him.
We're out here saving people.
It's like, oh, where'd he go?
What are y'all
Oh,
doing
they took
to this
him.
man?
They took him. Oh. Anyways, that's true
yeah.
though, man. I mean,
It's-
we don't have a medic force. We don't have
We
a
don't
fire
have any of that,
force.
right?
It's all
But
defensive. We're supposed to, and
it's
like to
all
me,
a service to you.
protection is protection, offensive or defensive.
Well, if you ask the mob, it's both. If you ask the government, it's both.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like I have to
Insurance is protection.
proactively protect you, or else you'll be defending here on yourself. Whatever. Like you said, if I don't patrol the streets, then the bad guys get in your home, and I can't show up fast enough to help you. You know, it's like the idea. But I'm like, hold up! I got numbers today, boys. I think I screen recorded it. I wonder if I can play it. I should be able to get it. Okay, so I screen recorded a clip last night of when they were talking about enacting essentially martial law on Los Angeles. They say, yo, tonight we'll be having a curfew. All you motherfuckers will be staying inside. All businesses will be shut down and all this. So I'm like, okay, sketch. But they made some interesting comments in there on let's roll it and I'll tell you what about it.
We have a pandemic that this country has not seen in 100 years. We're in the midst of it, and this organization has struggled to provide for the public health and support of the region, and that has taxed us. This is taxing us. So effective immediately, we're mobilizing our entire organization, something we have not done in more than 20 years.
Unbelievable.
And you can explain what that means, mobilizing the entire, you said every single person.
Every single sworn officer of the LAPD who is not out on sick leave or disability or something like that is required to report for duty. No vacations, no days off. Everybody, all hands on deck, essentially. There are 9,000 sworn Los Angeles police officers, which sounds like a lot. It is not. As he mentioned, a city of 4 million people. That is one officer roughly for every 433 residents in the city of Los Angeles. So we are, it is the lowest, one of the lowest ratios of police officers to residents of any major city in the United States, and they are taxed.
So what he says there, that 9,000 cops, there's 9,000 police. They said they mobilized the entire force, everybody off vacation. Nobody gets the night off. Nothing. Get your dick out your girl right now. Come to work. Everybody. Yep. And they're 9,000 deep. In a city of 4 million people. In a region of 10 million people. Okay? That's one cop, they said it, per 432 people. This idea that you're patrolling and that you're out here stopping something from going, even at your fullest, your strongest potential, you couldn't even begin to police the goddamn city. So
you might be catching like 4% of all uninsured drivers or some number that is completely irrelevant, but you're sucking up all this fucking money.
Nominal. So what does it create though? It's just like in you guys should watch that show Waco, man. It was really deep. It was about police force in Waco, right? And to go take down David Koresh and all this stuff. And it's interesting because they spin it from David Koresh and their point of view rather than just what the story was via the FBI and you know what I mean, and the official narrative that was released. Mm-hmm. These people, obviously you don't really know because these people all burned to death, but they create this fictitious world or whatever. In there though, there's this cop, and he represents this overzealous, angry cop. And he makes this comment where he's like, how they have to show force. Because he's like, if I don't show force here, there's hundreds of other motherfuckers out there that are watching. And he starts lending to this idea that their blue line is so thin that they feel like they have to show all this big might out in the streets so that people feel like the police force is out here, right? You know what I mean? Like, because if you don't feel like they're out here, you might be encouraged to make more moves because 430. I mean, why you loot, right? Because it's like, hey, they're busy. Let's get some other shit
loot going on.
Yeah, they ain't over here by the H&M. Let's bust these windows down.
Right. And
I'm
so
taking
I think
the mannequin home.
That's one of the core fundamental broken parts about this police force and all of this is they're just trying to be bigger than they actually are, and so they end up ruffling a bunch of individual people very roughly to try and set this precedent, you know.
In the streets, this is what we refer to as doing too much.
Yeah.
These niggas are doing too much.
Mm-hmm. Way too much.
That's what it is. They're just doing too much.
Just dial it back.
Just chill, bro.
Just redefine
chill.
Protection.
All
if you're
this,
protecting me,
like,
you don't have to check my papers.
Like you said, at this point, black communities are like, get the fuck out of here. We don't need you, all right? You're not helping the situation any. Now we're afraid of, getting killed by each other and also getting killed by you. So it's just like, you know, it's more force in a situation, in a place that's already force riddled, you know, and it's not helping them any. When, like I always say, the way I like my police force, I want my police service. That's what I want. I want a police service. When I need you, I'll call you. In the meantime, sit down somewhere, nigga. All right? Sit down somewhere with your constant investigating and your constant, you know, enforcing.
Ooh, I have an idea. Sorry, John, I want to get your take on this. I want to pull you in here because I feel like you haven't said anything. But I'm really interested to know what your take is on this idea. So if instead of having like a police force patrolling the streets looking for the crime, what if instead they were posted up in these like lifeguard-esque stations, you know, all around. I think they have this in England, sort of, or at least they used to. You know, they have these little booths.
They have them here.
Yeah, like little booths, like in the
South
parking
Padre.
lots. Yes, like in South Padre, they have these little, you know, like just little
like
stations, like
stands,
hey,
like lookout
if you,
stands.
like information, you know, like they help the community. They should be from that area, so that way they know about the place.
Like a little sentry that you could run to and be like, hey, there's a miss over here.
Yeah, hey, I think I saw somebody stealing some shit over there. And they can be like, oh, great, Jim, I got it. You stay here. And they can, you know.
They have that. It's like a 911. It's an instant dispatch, you know. But
Well,
I guess that's
dispatch.
the problem is they're dispatching them from their roaming.
Being out. But that's the
Yeah.
thing is they don't want them just out because that's very costly to just be out driving around. So
I'm
what
thinking.
do you
I'm
think?
thinking about your proposition as if it were an industry, and if it was an industry, then it would start to switch to robotics and AI and things like that. So if you wanted to police your system and you wanted to do it effectively, one of the tools that would make your low number of people more effective is robots and AI. It just seems like that plus a higher level of force. Like if you had one walking
Robots are not
tank
racist.
at a festival, you know what I'm saying? Nobody's gonna ride against that walking tank. Like
I don't know if you heard this or if the people heard this, but he just whispered to me while you were talking, robots are not racist.
That's true.
So maybe we might have stumbled upon the entire solution. We're just gonna automate police and all of you bitch ass niggas are fired and we're just gonna put robots in.
Yep.
Hey, robot, why you beat him up? Due to penal code 5016.
He's got the facts, you know. Robots got the
Jaywalking.
facts, dog. Robots always got the facts, man. That's funny.
What's up with our background?
Oh, that's wild. Jaywalking will go up by fucking...
We didn't watch the entire background video. So
Not doing it there.
Oh yeah. But it will soon.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Either way. Yeah, well, okay, because this is already something that they're doing, though. I've already seen videos of the Boston Dynamics Spot robot, the little dog one. It was like the breaching
They're out here.
like it was like the SWAT dudes were lined up on the house. I think it was in like Philly or something. And then Spot opened up the door, and another Spot went in first, so that the first thing to go in was just a robot instead of a guy.
Which is revolutionary.
That's revolutionary, because it's always that guy that gets shot.
That's
the dude that goes in first is the dude that takes it.
A little robot dog
Yeah, just a
comes
little
out and he's
robot.
like, and you just
And then, like,
perfect-
8
in an
forward.
iPad you see him just like I'm just like through the wall, boom.
Yeah. Do you guys remember I don't remember if it was Houston or Dallas, major Texas city, there was a Black Lives Matter guy that shot up a bunch of cops like in a downtown area, and then they had him cornered in like a parking garage. And when they had him cornered in the parking garage, they were like, damn, the SWAT team wants to move in on this guy. They were talking to him. They're having a conversation. And they put in this little bomb robot, and they were like, yo, we're just going to bring in this little buddy for you. And they just blew him up. And it was like, that's like a Spot Mini.
effective.
So, you know, it's not unprecedented to think that a Spot Mini could just be like, oh, you're rioting? Let me just run up and just pump out tear gas and fucking slice at your ankles.
Slice at your ankles is a little bit expensive.
Wait a second, bro. I mean, how long before these Spot Minis look like tarantulas and are running around like
I feel
motherfucking
you.
frost
It
spiders
could
in
get
Game
bad.
of Thrones?
It could get bad. The automation
Of course it
thing
could get bad.
Because then, like you said, they're gonna plus the numbers up quick. We're 9,000 men strong and 20,000
20,000 spider robots strong.
The problem is that it won't just be the Spot robots, though. Eventually, once they dial in this Atlas robot, then the Atlas robot will be the thing that you really have to
agree.
worry about, and then the Spot's just gonna be some shit on the side. Because
I believe that the man ones and yeah. But think about Alpha Dog too. It's like I still don't want to fuck with a thing that I can't even run up and push. Like I could run and just full drop
true.
kick it like I'm fucking Macho Man Randy Savage, and this thing on ice, and it would just be like, I'm fine. There's nothing's fucked here, dude.
It's got better reactions than a real dog because you could kick a pit bull in the
I've
face
seen
and that
him
bitch
make
is going
some
down.
serious moves.
Yeah,
bro.
you can kick a robot.
Like
in
he'll
the
get up,
face,
and
it'll
that
break
robot's
dance.
like, what?
You kick a robot in the face, it'll
He
break
was
dance.
doing- right? He was
Like
like,
the head spin.
He hit you with the fucking Neo.
Very true.
Yeah, I did. So I don't know about automating the police force either. But I mean, I feel what you're saying though. But there's ways, maybe not just taking it all the way to robots, but ways that we can make them more efficient in their job.
But what do you think about the boxes, the booths?
I think
I
Do you
like
think
the
that would be
idea,
better?
but I think that actual like humans, because I think of it like
Yeah.
you know, if you were a business, you know, like let's say all those streets and everything, like let's say you were a business and you wanted to keep order, you would not just only have like people patrolling, but you would have people at like choke points. So it's like if you just control the choke points, then all the other areas, like you still need people out there. Like if you're gonna like police in a way that's efficient, if you're in like an area where there's, you know, break-ins or something like that, you can't just have these hubs and then all the criminals would be like, oh, don't go by the fucking hubs, dude. Let me just stay away from the booths. I'm fine. I'll just go
crime
rob this lady
farm.
over here in the park where there isn't a booth for like fucking 45, you know, whatever. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just saying, you kind of incentivize, because like we already have. And some people say, and we could argue, but there is like institutional racism in the sense that like our towns that were designed at a certain time were designed in such a way to keep a certain type of people who had faced 250 years of slavery and 80 years of Jim Crow in a certain side of town with their own little businesses and don't fuck with my shit and don't drink my water and don't read my books and don't go to the school with my kids. When you have that for 300 plus years and then you have 40 to 60 years of, all right, you want to go to my college? I'll allow it. Mm-hmm. That's you're talking about, where I believe that you can't just say institutional racism doesn't exist in any way. Like I think you would have to say like, okay, the system is skewed in such a way to where now we're starting to see more equality, I think, but it's not nearly on that. Obviously, with the George Floyd death and policing in our society, it's obviously not the same level. We're not all like the black side of you is not equal to the white side of you.
Well, I think there's too many black people in the institution for you to say that. There's just too many black people. Like, the goddamn president was black. Like, how are we talking about institutional racism? Like, I don't think an institution would let the head guy become black if they were
I'm
racist.
just saying, if
that doesn't make
we
any
solved
sense.
it,
Like,
did we completely solve it in 40 years?
Huh?
Did we completely solve it in like 40 or 60 years?
I mean, you
talk
didn't get
about
rid
this
of
because
racist,
we have talked about
but
this
institutional
earlier.
racism?
We have talked about this earlier about we were establishing the timeline of how we got to this point, and then I was making the point about how it's just like if you let somebody out of prison, then it doesn't mean that they're going to economically catch up.
No, yeah.
So I definitely think we're living in the echoes of that system, but it's this idea that the system hates these people because of their color is the part that, is trying to keep them away because of their color. No, it's just we're stuck in this now echo where it just is what it is right now. Like we are a capitalistic society that believes in like, hey, we all showed up here with nothing kind of type mentality, right? And so they're saying, look, we're no longer stopping you. Yes, you have nothing, right? But we're no longer stopping you from gaining things. So begin gaining things and whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're saying, well, we're trying to gain things, but you're still oppressing us through the policing. You know what I mean? Like essentially they're saying you just modernized your ability to oppress us. And that's why we think, like, that's why I would love for people to start talking about, sweeping changes in the way that we police society rather than just like reform.
Yes.
It's like you said, it needs to be a whole new philosophy and a whole new idea.
Right.
And like you're saying, like some type of century, right? Which I get the idea, but all you did was stop them from moving. You know what I mean? Like right now they patrol like a 6-block area or whatever. They patrol a little station. If I create that a booth or a couple booths, it's same. But I thought of a cool idea that hybrid off of your idea. I'm
all in on robots. I'm all in on
You're
robots.
on the robots, yeah.
I'm all in on robots.
This will help. This will help too.
I mean,
But
that's what's gonna happen.
everything's got to get smaller. the smaller everything becomes, the more localized everything becomes, the more efficient it becomes, and the more directly representative of the population it becomes. Yep. So if your police force is made up of the people from your community, then they're going to very much be protecting your interests of your community, right? Even if the interest of your community is like drugs and alcohol and gangs and shit. If all the people coming from that, they might be helping that or hurting that, whatever. But at least you don't have to worry about them executing you based on your skin color or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, imagine if everything broke down. What if, instead of pouring all these resources into like federal police, FBI's, and like all these federal agencies, DEAs, and all these ATFs and all that shit, right? Because, I'm big on decentralization. All these resources fall down to the government level, which then fall down to the city level. So now what I'm essentially saying is you make more police stations, right? You make more police. You make them more localized. You make, instead of these mega precincts where I live in Beverly Hills, I work in Van Nuys, and then I police in South Central, right? Wouldn't you rather just be from that community? And like you said, having like a sentry and knowing that the police are your police and they're people and they're looking out for you. Just like in rural communities, right? They don't have problems with this. The police are their friends because 9 times out of 10 they are their friends. It's the sheriff.
That's because it's on a
hired
completely
the
different
sheriff.
system.
Right.
Municipal police is a completely different system than a sheriff's department. A sheriff's department is usually not so bad because they have to be elected.
Yes.
And so like everybody has to agree with the way that you've been doing it after a certain amount of time. And so like people, you have like, you don't just become the police chief until you retire.
Yeah, just because. And like I said, it just, right now the problem is their allegiance is to the police force, right? Because they see themselves as a collective group of people fighting against everybody else.
Right.
It's all of us, the good guys versus the bad guys, who could be anybody. Maybe more likely these group of people. Which I have a hot take, not a good take, a hot take, John, as you like to call them.
Yeah, those hot takes.
That only me and you can really relate to in this conversation. Because I've had this theory now, too, about why this is going on like this. I'm not racist. Or I guess I am. I guess I'm about to admit my delve in racism, or whatever the case may be, right? We spent a good amount of time in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? I spent 5 solid years of my life in this place.
Yeah, I did 15 months. That was enough.
Right. So everybody of a
I don't want to do anymore.
Right, but we were in a place, right, where everybody of a certain culture, certain skin color, certain ideology, whatever. They were like them and we were like us and it was different, right?
Yep.
Any one of those different people could have been the enemy because we were fighting terrorism at the time, which wasn't, they didn't wear uniforms. They didn't do,
yeah,
so
it was,
it's almost the same exact dynamic. I grew a healthy, not an unhealthy, distrust of these people, right? Not because I think that every one of them were bad. I just didn't know which one of them was bad.
So you had to treat them like they were all bad.
My brain was constantly assessing them as threats. The guy just serving me my lunch every day, he's not even
he could stab me.
You know what I mean?
100% just be like, got him.
He's from fucking the Philippines or something, but
it could just be holy war
similar,
stuff. It could
and
be
I'm
based
just
on
like,
his religion,
I don't know if he's poisoning this, and the guy comes in, he's trying to fix my AC, he works for me, and I don't hate, like, I'm not a hate man, like, I love everybody, but imagine being in a situation where constantly people that look a certain type of way are trying to kill you, are the enemy, or the bad guy, or could be. I'm starting to see how these not in this instance, not in this obviously not in this George and Floyd, where you're sitting here, but in these incidences where they snap shoot this guy, or you know what I mean, whatever happens, and I was scared and I popped him. It's like, I see that, bro, because
that's a really interesting point that also goes both ways, because the black people in question who are having these interactions with white police officers look at them as a danger. So I've never talked to a black person that said they felt safe getting pulled over or like, you know what I mean? So it's like it's 1v1, this idea that okay, these people usually do this. I always have these bad interactions, so I better treat every one of them like they're all exactly the same. And the human experience isn't an individual, unique experience where you can be whatever you want to be. Nope, you have your pants sagging a little too low for that, buddy. I'm lumping you in with the thugs, capital letters, on Twitter.
But no, it's true. That's totally true. Yeah. It works both ways because there's a lot of us now that are like, but wait, there's a lot of good cops out here. And they're like, well...
A lot of good soldiers too, but hey, a
Well,
lot of Iraqi insurgents
some of
died.
those guys was doing some fuck shit, and then you
yeah,
think
a lot of
all
those insurgents. Who you think killed them insurgents?
It sucks, bro. But that's what the dynamic in which I started putting myself in those shoes, and I started seeing how, dude, we can pull it up if you want to, but I've watched the investigative like stuff where they put people in social experiments like this, like take you, Mister, you think you're so righteous guy, you know? Let me vest you up and put you on a shooting range. And I'm gonna have black guys and white guys pop up of different varying dangers levels. Some have guns, some are holding babies. Overwhelmingly, they kept shooting the black people. Pow, pow, pow. These are police officers. These are you and me. These are people right off the street. So why are they doing that, right? Well, it's because this constant perpetuated narrative that the black people are the dangerous people, you know? And it's scary. That's scary.
Yeah. I'm glad we have the multiracial viewpoint on this podcast. It is...
Oh, yeah. That's so sick.
God.
It's good. It's dangerous. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's fun. It's like... You know,
very dangerous.
Yeah, we're allowed to say whatever the fuck we want. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck my skin color. I live in America where I could just say anything I want to.
Anything.
And it's like, it hurts and it sucks and it's painful sometimes. But that's how you learn.
But we have that freedom.
That's how you
We
learn.
have that freedom that
learn.
other people don't have that we shouldn't take for granted.
No.
That is just, you know, it's sacred. It's sacred.
important.
People don't realize that. You know, because people always think like Mac was saying, maybe on the podcast, but it's great when it's working for you. You know, when the rules are working for you and the everything, the ideology is working for you or whatever. But when it turns against you, John, you disappeared on us. Oh, there you
No, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had to shut the door.
When it disappears on you, or when it changes, the ideology changes or whatever, and it turns against you. Hell, white people supposedly might, you know, feel this here soon as the system turns against them, you know? They're feeling that now, you know? Like, it doesn't matter. Any type of system you create can be turned against you one day when the rules of the game change. And that's
Yeah, how interesting is that you can have black people at rallies saying that they're being oppressed by white people, while at the same time in other places there are white people at rallies saying that they're being oppressed by black people. And so everybody's trying to cash in on this oppression game, you know, like where you guys are oppressing us. And like, no, you guys are oppressing us. And it's like, well, how about y'all just mind your own fucking business?
Yeah,
how about
really
that?
trying to get
How about
to
you
that.
just worry about your own fucking problems?
I'm really trying to get to that.
How about that?
I really am trying to get to
And
that.
if you're really
Yeah,
gonna actually come out here and help, then like actually come out here and help. Like give George Floyd's family some money so they can put his ass in the ground.
Donate.
Yeah, like yelling at other cops that they're not even in the same city. Like they're not even the same state. Like you're literally yelling at people that never even shot their guns before. It's like,
but it's kind of like this theory that we were just talking about, this extrapolation theory, you know, of like you that's the problem that I think that's why we need to increase our sense of individualism in our society, right? In the sense that you're not a black man, you know, like stop us identifying with these gigantic groups of people who think completely different. Like you said, like you just because you're Islamic does not make you a terrorist. Just because you're black doesn't make you a gangster. Just because you're a cop doesn't make you a racist or any, you know. But we keep identifying with these massive groups of people, and then when we don't align, it's like it just causes all this humruckus. I'm like,
well, that's how people fuck up the comparisons too, because they're comparing like black people to white people, just generally, just averagely, and it's like, well, the average black person is a completely different person than an average white person. So you can't compare them, you know, like they're incomparable, literally. Different. Because when you start looking at the data and you start looking at like both of these men have been married, you know, both of these men are married to the same woman for 30 years. They've both been working in the same job job for 30 years, then the differences almost go away entirely. And in many cases, you actually start seeing that a lot of those oppressed people are doing better than white people in those categories. So it's just that too few black people fall into those categories.
Because they represent a smaller portion.
Exactly, of that category, right? So and people move between these categories throughout time. So like people talk about the bottom 20%. Well, the bottom 20% is basically like young people and homeless people and some old people. But most old people actually have lots of money. That's how you start out with no money. You're spending your parents' money, and then you start getting a job and you get your own money and you're spending all of that and maybe even then some. And now, especially because of our credit whole situation in America, like even more than that. And so you never get to that point where you are old with money. And so now there's all these old people without money and they're like, hey, like we're getting fucked too. And it's like, no, bro, you fucked yourself the whole way through. The whole way through.
Fucked yourself, bro. The whole time.
The whole time.
Yep, the whole time. You were just fucking yourself.
The whole time complaining.
So, if I can interject a new point, I have one. I brought some.
Oh, wait, are we moving off the riots?
Because we were doing police and riots.
No, this is totally on.
Like policing
this is,
and riots.
This is our big boss daddy his opinion on the riots and what he thinks is going on out here in these streets.
Oh, give me give me Donald Trump's Twitter.
Good not Mr. Excuse me, President Trump. His ideas on what's going on here. So funny. So funny.
He is a funny
man.
man.
Let me tell you something. I want to, since this is our first episode, I have to set some precedences on my political views and all these
It's true,
things,
yeah.
right?
This conversation is probably...
the scope, because, you know, they're like, wait, do they like Trump? Are they? You're already automatically trying to put us in boxes, you know?
What
like,
little box do they fall in? I bet you that guy with the long hair. I bet you
I bet
Bernie.
he's
I bet he's a communist.
He's a Trumper. Look, he's white. He's got long hair and he's wearing red. He definitely likes Trump.
Oh, You're right. Blood for life. MAGA for life, baby.
So
Let's go. I got a
box
hat
it.
with an American flag on it right here. Let's go, baby.
You are in the Carolinas.
Fucking North Carolina.
It's so
It's
fun
North
already,
Carolina,
bro, because it's just like you couldn't even peg us if you wanted to. So, nonetheless, I don't care. I don't care. I think that all of my ideas are more systematic in the sense like you can swap out the names of the president. I have problems with the idea of the president. You know, like I have
the office of the president.
Right. I have problems with government as an institution. I don't really necessarily care whose name you put in the placard. So that's my general,
It's about the shit that they're allowed to do.
Right. That is overarching philosophy that I subscribe to. But I thought that this was interesting that this man was using his little propaganda machine this way. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
So check it out.
I understand the pain that people are feeling. We support the right of peaceful protesters, and we hear their pleas. But what we are now seeing on the streets of our cities has nothing to do with justice or with peace. The memory of George Floyd is being dishonored by rioters, looters, and anarchists. The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings.
So yeah, he just blatantly right there just like blames all riots and all like nefarious actions, looting, riots, all the evil things that are happening in these protests are Antifa and my other enemies.
There's
all
one
organized.
answer. There's only one answer to this question.
Because
If you're
the
fucking
left.
with me, if you're protesting anything, it's me, all right?
It's
me.
It's because
It's all
Antifa and the
about
left
me.
are looking for ways to surpass and upset Donald J. Trump. It was
Yep.
wild though. I think any politician, any good politician would have done the same thing. Me and Mac always say this, you know, let no good crisis go to waste, you know, as they say. That's the thing.
Yep.
It's important. So, like he said, he's always really he's brilliant at that propaganda, bro.
Yep, spinning to whatever narrative he wants. There was a protest outside the White House, and he was on Twitter, and we'll probably be able to link to his tweets as well. but it's like protests outside the White House, and people are freaking out, and they're like, yo, there's protests outside the White House, Secret Security's called, all these news people are reporting on it and shit, and it's all over Twitter. And then the next morning he's like, we were totally safe, we have the most vicious dogs. Our Secret Service people, they have so many bullets, huge bullets. Let me tell you about my bullets.
Yeah, I keep seeing these two quotes. I just see headline and it says, Trump threatens protesters with, quote, vicious dogs and, quote, ominous weapons.
Yeah, he'll microwave you. He'll microwave beam you.
Actually say ominous weapons?
He did. He said my Secret Security agents they're rock hard. They're ready to go, baby. Let's go.
You know what?
Microwave beam these
I love
people.
that you're bringing this up because I have an article that I would like to introduce, and it is about Secret Service agents in riot gear fucking up some protesters at the White House gates. They were trying to bust through, and they had to get them. They had to get them good.
What ominous weapons did they have?
They had them ominous weapons.
Link in the description to the article.
Link
all the speech, all the videos and the articles and stuff. You'll see all that down below.
Through Zoom is like watching it through a fucking tin can with strings attached.
That's so weird. So when I had the article pulled up on my phone, and I just had it pulled up from last night when I saw the thing.
Different Twitter video.
Yeah. So I was trying to see it on my phone, but the section where the Twitter video, like this was all white, and then I refreshed my Google Chrome browser, and now it's showing me what it's showing you. And it's not the video that I saw, because in the video that I saw, it's the same video as the one that we watched first, but you actually see him pepper spray everybody in front of him. Like he just rips the crowd with pepper spray, and they all just run backwards. But
well, maybe that was that thing in the middle, and everybody's like, hands up.
Maybe we missed it because it was all blurry. But either way, my actual point about that was actually that there's a lot of fucking coughing going on in that video. Like, there's a lot of coughing going on in that video.
Okay,
and I was like,
I see what you're saying. I see where you're going with that.
Bro!
I see where you're going with that.
I've been in the gas chamber, bro. There's so many cats getting hit with tear gas right now, and
anybody that's asymptomatic
I've been hit with tear gas, bro. And if there's one thing tear gas does more than anything else, it releases every moisturous like fucking droplet you have in your body.
If you got some Corona in there, bro, that bitch is coming out,
bro. I don't give a
it's
fuck
gonna
what.
Still be in your system, but you're gonna be spewing it on everybody.
Your eyes,
dog.
your mouth, your nose.
That's so true.
So funny.
Yeah, bro.
And God, you ain't got no fucking mask on. Fuck that shit. Immediate ripped off.
Bro, people out here with handkerchiefs over their face thinking it's gonna protect them. Like this is World War I in the trenches.
Won't even play the video.
So, just to reiterate, I told you won't be able to see this, but on my phone it shows me. I'm trying to play that Twitter video on my phone now from that article, and it says this media could not be played. So
gone.
they
memory hold. Bloop, gone.
They were like,
that's all they did. They said, bloop, you're
They're
gone.
trying to embarrass me.
That's all they did. You got memory hold, bro. What happened to John Allen? Nothing. Don't think about him.
Yo, it's interesting times we're living in, bro. Like in all my 30 years of living, this has by far been the most exciting year.
Oh, yeah. Super. Well, it's a very exciting year in America.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, we did also live through 9/11, but at the same time, it's like,
I wasn't aware of what was going on. I was too young.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
should-
it's probably the same exact levels.
They should back to back though with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
this
like
is a 1-2
shit's happening
punch.
one after the other after the other. Yeah,
Like it's
a
just
lot
like,
different.
which makes me
a lot
wonder if this is a new trend that's evolving where we're so hyper connected. You know what I mean? Like it's now any incident has the ability to capture national attention.
Yeah,
Right.
not only national attention, but national protest and
Protests or national
reaction.
reactions and all like you
Yeah.
said, like very, very strong consequences in the world. People who
Yep.
were scared, honestly, people who were scared, who may have been unjustly scared, like overly scared just because everybody started talking about it so quickly and made it seem such a more drastic than it actually is, Think about how drastic a problem would have to be in the world for it to reach all around the world in say the 1300s. For everybody to find out about the Black Plague and all this shit,
It took a while.
long time before it made, that's how bad it had to be though before it was really bad enough to affect some motherfucker on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, it had to travel on boats with rats over fucking multiple continents through multiple climates. It had to survive. It had to live on fucking oak, different forms of
People
wood.
had to talk about it and shit.
Yeah, they had to be aware of it.
People had to be like,
Have you heard the news?
be on the news. You can't.
I just learned your word in your language.
Oh,
It means
tomorrow they're dying
corona.
by the thousands. It comes in the boats.
It comes on the rats in the boats. We know.
What?
You looked at them under
Did I say
glass.
what? Yes, tell everyone. Tell your villages. And dude, that's my point. People died by the bazillions before we figured it out. But now we're so hyper-connected. The smallest pin drops in Minnesota, boom! The whole country, there it goes. Racial division. What?
Same thing
Again?
happens with Netflix shows. Look at Tiger King. Look at look
Yeah.
at any other piece
Anything.
of media that goes
Anything.
pop like that. It's just we're so
Game
interconnected
of Thrones.
because of social media.
Oh, you want to talk about
I
this?
see you out here, girl. I see you out here, social media. I see
he
you.
likes
But wait,
doing
before we
girl.
get into
He
social
likes to
media-
keep- I do want to get into
I
social
see what
media.
you're
I
doing.
do want to get
girl.
into social media too, but I got one more thing
Yeah.
on this, and it's really good. And I'm wondering again. This is something that I'm interested in your take, John.
Yep.
This is another article. This one's from Fox News, and so take that with a grain of salt.
Hey, it's still information.
So basically, China and Iran are mocking us on Twitter right now. This is the first little paragraph. China fired back at the United States' concerns with Hong Kong's freedom by pointing directly at the racial unrest that has exploded in America, simply tweeting, quote, "I can't breathe."
Jesus Christ,
This is
China
a Chinese
savage.
This is Hua Chunying, a spokesperson for CHN, just said, "I can't breathe."
That one burnt.
But
That was
then I got this. I want to put this picture up. I saved it. This is hilarious.
Wait, so they're trolling us just because the Chinaman said, "I can't breathe"?
No, what? No.
No, what he's
She's
saying is
trolling
that-
us by saying, "I
Yeah.
can't breathe."
She's
She's like
very,
laughing at us in the sense that China was.
So the context is that Trump signed some stuff or did some news stuff about Hong Kong, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken there. I don't have all the facts.
Yeah,
on it.
he's
basically
got their
sort of-
special.
He said,
Yeah.
he's like, "We're not treating Hong Kong as anything separate than China now."
Yeah.
He also said that thank you, China, for the present that you gave us, referring to COVID-19. So
Yes.
he also directly insinuated again
That it was
China
their fault.
gave
That's
this to
China's
us.
fault. Yeah.
Right.
So those two things, and then China slaps us back with "I can't breathe."
With I
like,
can't
oh,
breathe.
oops,
Like,
wow.
oh, look at you guys.
I wonder
Can't
if
even-
China. I wonder if the what's the leader of China's name right now? It's slipping
I
my
can't
tongue. But,
remember.
it's not Xi Jinping or something. I don't know. But I fucking.
You know what I
Fucking
took from
this
this
all
whole?
up.
You know what I took from that whole thing?
What?
This thing you started with about take it for a grain of salt. I was like, yo, does China have is this the official China Twitter or some shit? That I'm
No, this
missing
is just
that
a
I'm
woman
not-
that's high up in the government of China.
Yeah,
But that's just the
is-
setup, bro. That's
China.
just the setup. Because I got this picture here where this Iranian dude totally went in and edited with like red lines all like this thing that some American dude wrote about civil unrest that was going on in Iran. And it reads exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Like I said, I want to put it on here so that other people can see it because it's hilarious. He didn't even just like put it in red. Like he literally just marked shit out and then in smaller text in red wrote America. So it says here.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah, here he'll pull it up. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is some Iranian person?
This is somebody that is in the Iranian government who's
okay.
editing something that somebody in the American government said about Iran.
Yeah, it's Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, and his words on Iran from June 27th, 2018, it looks like. But and it's like a press statement, recent protests in Iran. So it was our Secretary of State giving recent protests in Iran, like his reaction to it. And it's word for word, if you switch it around, exactly what's going on in America. Except instead of just corruption, injustice, and incompetence from the leaders, we just have to have the little spice of racism.
Yeah, he just inserts racism in it.
Which I would say it's classism more than it. I mean, it is racism, but I believe classism isn't.
It's
it has
rooted.
some inherent racism to it.
This is something that I've actually wanted to talk about, but it's a misdiagnosis of the problem. It looks like racist on the surface, but if you just take it at its face. But like we said, if you dig into it, you actually realize that it's classism. Because these exact same things are happening in Britain, where all the people are white, basically.
Yeah.
A lot of immigrants. It's happening to immigrants in England, where there's a lot of there's immigration issues. That's their major concerns over there. Is that these immigrants, these Somalians or whatever, from these other non-British nations. That's all the racism stems from that issue over there. From my experience of like looking at different things people.
Well, no,
said,
now they have a reason to
opinions.
be racist. But like as far as I was talking about, like in the past, like you can see, like in the '60s, the same kind of problems that was plaguing America was plaguing all of Western societies, from Sweden
Western
to Britain
society
to
has
every
a lot
place.
of the same problems.
Yeah, they were having these like really bad like explosions of new ideas, but in a very violent way, in the same way that we're seeing now.
But this is why my proposal to ending racism, right? If you really want to end racism, is you have to stop identifying by race.
Yeah, just stop saying that you're a certain race.
That's the only
and then
way
there's
to
no
stop.
more racism.
Because let me tell you something. It's human psychology to pick on the minority. This is just natural. There's a minority in every single collective of anything, right? We talked about this earlier. You're kind of the odd man out here. You're kind of the minority of this conference. 3 of us assembled, and you're kind of the political minority in our little podcast.
You could say so.
It happens in every situation. And I had to tell Mac, I said, hey, be careful. Let's not gang up on John Allen because our political views align closer than ours and his, mate. Automatically, the minority that has nothing to do with race. This is a political minority. Now, this can happen anywhere. Your children. You know what I mean? They're the little guys. You have to protect them. Anyways, my point is, anybody who's little or marginalized or whatever, who's super marginalized in our community right now? Handicapped people. People who have disabilities and things of that nature. They don't even get, whatever. They don't get all kinds of things. Fair shots, all kinds of shit. My point is, why? Why are they so marginalized? There's so few people. We talk about in a libertarian society how you got to be careful of that because there's so few people to represent them that it's easy to get lost in the shuffle. So being a minority sucks, okay? Just period. It doesn't matter if you're in the UK and you're the only guys that want Brexit and everybody else doesn't, then it's really hard to be those guys who don't want it. Anytime you're the anti-idea of anything, people automatically are like,
which is why they lambasted Kanye so bad. Kanye was like the only black entertainer saying, hey, let's go talk to the president. Let's see if he's got some good ideas.
Or fucking with the Trump campaign. And they were like immediately like chastised. They excommunicated him. You're not really black. And what? Like, you're not even a black guy anymore. It's like, this is what I'm saying. Like, I thought, how is that a mutable character? So my
So yeah, if they can take it from you, then you should be able to just shuck it.
So right,
it's like we
if
can't.
They can remove it off you, can be able to shuck it.
This is a really interesting conversation.
It is.
Because,
It is. It's an interesting way to think about it. But
because we lump ourselves in with our ideas, which is this conversation me and you've had tons of times. I think me and you, Rod. I don't know if I've ever had Mac in the conversation of how we like lump people into their ideas, where it's like, oh, you fuck with Trump. Okay, you're a Trumper.
Then you're
so
this.
Here's all the ideas that you believe in.
Yeah, if he's got
Trump.
Yeah, and it's like that. That's
He's a
very
funny guy.
difficult.
What the fuck does that make me?
I like Trump. I don't agree with his
Because the
policies
same way
most
that
of the
we
time.
just
I
the
think
same
he's
way that the
interesting.
situation's
He's an
gonna
interesting
have a minority is the same way that like the situation's always gonna have a minority, like you said.
Yeah.
Well, there's also.
So don't make your minorityness about your race.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Also, it really
you'll
doesn't-
still be marginalized for whatever. Maybe because you're poor. Maybe because you don't read as good as everybody else in your class or whatever. We're all marginalized for something. But if you don't identify as this like entire race or this entire thing, I think it just makes it easy not to be. You know.
Tribalism is built into that too.
I also believe that really doesn't apply to race anyways, because when you look at the numbers, 15% of Americans are white, and the next highest group is black people at 14%. So I mean, like,
If
you
you
guys
count-
are the
if
same
you
amount
count-
of
wait,
people.
wait,
What the fuck are you
No,
talking
no,
about?
If you count the white Hispanic, which is a huge number, it's like the whites and white Hispanics. So non-Hispanic whites and Hispanic whites.
I've
If you
seen that.
lump those two together, that number there is.
But it's not about who you lump together. It's about who they lump
I'm saying
each other.
it's
Because
the
these are
skin.
studies that are done based
Yeah.
on who you say you are. So if you say you're white, then that's how they count it.
Yeah, but like I say, but I would be a Hispanic.
Like on papers and stuff, when they start asking you,
See
Is that what you would
Race.
tell them? Is that what you would
I'd be
tell
like-
them you're Hispanic white? Or you would tell them that you're just white? Like when you're
I mean,
filling out the form.
If I fill out a paper and it asks me if like they usually say Latin or something or whatever, it's like or Hispanic.
I don't
it's
know.
like,
I don't look at those ones. I'm not that.
Well, I mean, in the times I've had to fill out paper in my long illustrious career, if it has like white or Latino or white or Hispanic, it's like, well, I can't just say white because I have all this Hispanic blood. So it's like, why would I misrepresent myself and say like I am this one overarching white thing when I can say I am much more specifically in this tribe? So, like,
Well, this has always been an oppressive conversation for me because you want to talk about marginalized. What if you're neither? What happens if you're
I'm not white or black.
You know what I mean? Like when I was
That's
in
a
high
great point.
school, how many times people were like, I thought you were supposed to be good at basketball. What? How come we don't run fast? I said, why would I run fast? Well, aren't you black?
why do you listen to rock music?
A little bit. You know what I mean? Like, what? So I guess
said little bit.
This is the racism, I guess, that everybody's talking about is stereotyping, which, again, me and Mac have talked a lot in depth about stereotyping. We'll get into that sometime. But it's just like, that's natural, too. You know what I mean?
This girl in high school one time asked me if I was Jamaican because I wanted to have dreads and I smoked a lot of weed. And I was like, Jamaican? Do I look Jamaican?
But either way, it's just like, that's marginalized. So I just don't identify. Every time I'm on that paper, they ask me that, what are you? And I'm like, here I am, just a poor kid, 20 minutes. I'm just trying to answer a stupid question. Somebody's like, you black or you white? Excuse me, I need some help.
I need some help with this question, please. How do you quantify the two things?
What do I put here? And you know what they used to tell me? This is how dumb this whole conversation. You know what they used to tell me? Well, it's whatever your daddy is. What does that mean?
I didn't come out of my daddy.
How does that make it the definitive character of whether or not I fall in the black or the white line? What the stupid shit is this that we're playing? What kind of game is this, And so I'm just not with it at all. I'm like, yo, just drop that. Just drop that whole,
Maybe they
identification.
told you that because that would add you, because if you are white and black, maybe if you say that you're black, they're hoping that you might also not have a dad, which would add to the high numbers of black people without dads.
And you think they have some type of agenda toward that?
Just saying. I mean, you can't rule it out.
Hey, that's the thing. When people are like, numbers don't lie. It's like, yeah, but the people who put those numbers on the fucking paper.
No, numbers lie all the time. I hate when people say that. Like, numbers don't lie. And I'm like, did you do the math right? Because if you didn't do the math right, then those numbers
Then the
are
numbers
lying
just
in your
lie.
face.
Then they lie to you. Did you factor in every part of the
Every
equation?
variable?
So interested in what
Every
numbers
variable?
you're presenting to me. It's like
Yeah, where'd
so
those
many
numbers
numbers
come
out
from?
here. I'm like, you know what I mean?
How do you know which
These
numbers are
10 numbers?
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's you guys again.
the world's melting in our face,
Oh,
bro.
they extended it. Now the curfew's from 6 to 6.
Okay.
This is
it,
happening live. Wow, they're giving
got
people
45
40
minutes.
minutes notice.
Yeah, 40 minutes notice to get
We're
home.
shutting down right now.
City's gonna be closed in 40 minutes.
the
Get your
fuck
ass
outta
inside.
here. Which
Hope you're
is
not
so
homeless.
oppression from the other side too. Now I'm just like, you know what I mean? Now it's like,
Now I want to go outside.
well,
Bro,
it's
imagine
just
being homeless right now. Imagine living in your car right now in downtown.
only exemption. That's the interesting thing. If you don't have no home, then you're good because we don't know what to do with you.
Yeah, we don't really have anywhere to put you.
I hope you got a 10.
Black, white, anything, whatever. You stuck there because we haven't quite figured you out yet.
Just hope that somebody doesn't throw a Molotov at your car, while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So, good luck. Good night, sleep.
It's
Good
dangerous.
night.
It's dangerous on both sides. I don't trust the police and I don't trust the protesters. I don't trust either one of them, honestly. But that's just like, just because, like I said, they're people who bring force to situations are not with that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not with that idea. That's why I
That
don't.
force isn't trying to protect me or keep me safe.
Yeah,
That force
man.
is going to kill me if it gets pointed in the wrong direction.
Lately, that's how I've been summing up a little bit of my. It's not even my political views, but I guess my economic views or whatever. Like, the blood or money. You know what I mean? Like, at least a free market promotes incentivizing people to do things. You know what I mean? Like, hey, come on, get over here. I got this good little thing for you. You make more money over here or something.
Yeah,
like
I got
that.
value beans. My company gives out
'cause
value
some of this
beans every
value,
year.
right? But
some of these value beans.
with governments though and regulations, that is inherently means I'm gonna make you do it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Leave
we're
me the
getting
fuck
lit
alone.
up.
I'm not even outside.
Funny, you don't even get to opt in or out of that, do you?
Yeah, no,
It's just
my
like-
shit's on vibrate, but that should never fucking vibrate.
Bro, if the Martians land, that's exactly what's happening to everybody's
If they
phone.
want you to
Everybody's
know.
phone's gonna go boop. Martians have landed.
It's time. That's the funny thing about it too. Is like that's what I was saying that joke still prevails to me too. I'm like, how black are you when the aliens land? I bet you don't give a fuck anymore. Or white.
What was
or
the
anything.
No, the
For
joke.
that matter.
The joke is that the aliens are super cool with the black people. They get off.
Yeah,
the station,
yeah, that's
it's
what I
got
said,
Spinners.
right?
They dap them up. Hey, what up, brother? And
That's what
the
I
white
said.
people are like, oh
and then
shit.
all of a sudden, now what? Now who's privileged now? You're the best friends with the aliens, man, and we're fucked. They hate us. They hate us. And we're all
like, you
enslaved now because the aliens don't fuck with us.
All the aliens are like a grayish black, and they're like.
It's
you
just
have white
interesting
people
that
too.
you never know you can flip the pendulum. But one of the most powerful things that I think is useful out of the conversation we had, and what I think a lot of the community is looking for, I don't know, but is that acknowledgement that we're still in the echoes of this shit. You know what I mean? Like just because you took the shackles off of us doesn't mean that we're okay out here. And they're trying to still let us know that they need some type of attention or some type of care in the fact that they're still trying to figure out how to get
It's a difficult question to
on their
answer,
feet
man.
as a people
super
or as a disenfranchised,
Yeah.
because they
Very-
have been
very-
set up disproportionately to be the poor people in our community, like just as like somewhere in South Africa or other places where we've been separated by race, then it tends to leave you at a disadvantage when you're done. But this idea that the hate is still prevailing, I think, is the idea that we should let go of, because that's not the case. I think that everybody is listening and everybody does want to help you recover. You know what I mean? We're trying to help the situation, but I don't think constantly pushing
we're not doing
the
enough,
narrative
but I
that
absolutely do think that we're trying.
Yeah.
We're not doing enough.
we're not doing enough. No, I agree with that. And you can always go harder. But just this idea that the system hates you because of your skin color, I think that we're far past that part.
It's a trap, is what you're saying.
Right. It's like it's a
way to take your conversation away from meaningful back and forth.
Right,
Just
of like
say,
what's
"I'm
gonna
the
actually
thing
coming
that
up with a
give
solution.
me-"
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I constantly ask myself, I just say, man, I wish I had the biggest spotlight in the world and I would just turn it on every single protest. Bang! We hear you. What are your demands? Well, stop killing people. Sorry, that hasn't happened ever. So any other ideas? You know what I mean? Like,
We would really love that, but unfortunately,
Mac, the poor guy, man. Mac saw this picture of this dude, was like, his sign read, "We're done dying."
yeah, my buddy's at the riot, right? Your face.
How are we done? How?
That's what he said. He's at the riot and he takes a picture, and I just happened to
just
notice
sorry
that this
I
black
know
guy.
what you're saying,
Yeah,
but,
he told
but
him to
it's
say,
like,
we're done dying.
like,
You're not done.
You're
dying.
not. Like, that's never
You're gonna
gonna
die, man.
happen. So really, honestly, that's my problem. Is most people haven't really spent enough time really thinking about not what the problem is. Like I said, we can all agree the problem is overwhelmingly black people are disenfranchised for whatever reason. Right?
Yeah.
Like the numbers
based
just
upon
add up to that.
society,
Yeah.
culture,
Whatever.
years of slavery, all
History,
those things combined.
All those things add up.
Yes.
Like the
I don't agree
numbers.
with that.
Okay, I understand, but the numbers show that. I mean,
No, they don't.
right?
I got numbers. I got my
pull
own
the
numbers.
numbers. Let's bring the numbers
I'll
out.
pull the numbers in.
Let's bring the numbers out, because
I mean, the thing is that when you see in between the era, there's 100 years in between when the 1960s Reconstruction happens, and even with Jim Crow and all of that combined, black people were doing way better. The trends were pushing way in a more positive trend until the 1960s, and then they just completely U-turned and nosedived right off into a cliff.
Because of crack or cocaine, or I mean, do you think it was like some drugs involved in some of that?
There's probably a
What do
lot
you-
that involves drugs, but I think it has more to do with the welfare state, honestly, because it's something that what is this? This is a whole Netflix thing?
there's a whole Netflix thing. There's a whole 15 minutes on the racial wealth gap explained.
Oh, this is interesting. I'd love to hear.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear what they
John, you got 15 minutes?
I remember watching this.
Yeah.
Oh, you watched this?
Me
Oh,
and John
okay.
watched this together. Yeah.
Oh, Cory Booker.
Oh.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'd love to watch it. Yeah.
I'm talking to John.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I've seen it, but yeah, I like the information that they present.
I think it's a good brush up. And it's definitely the source that I've been referring to for my sauce.
Just over 150 years ago, this was money for almost half of America. On multiple bills were people picking cotton. Enslaved people. These slaves didn't just represent wealth in America, they were wealth. By 1863, they were worth over $3 billion.
Yeah.
Since then, America has slowly, painfully transformed as a country, breaking down racial barrier after racial barrier.
I am very optimistic about the future. Frankly, I have seen certain changes in the United States that surprise me. So on the basis of this, I think we may be able to get a Negro president in less than 40 years. I would think in 25 years or less.
Nailed it, buddy.
Wealth
It was close.
is different.
Yeah, it was close.
Wealth is where sort of past injustices
Well, 40 years
meet
is
present suffering.
Yeah,
I think the
almost.
racial wealth gap speaks to the fact that we still have a long way to go to achieve ideals of equality in this country.
The racial wealth gap is a measure of the white family and the African American family that's right smack dab in the middle, the median.
The median white household's wealth, their savings, assets minus their debts, is $171,000. The median black households is $17,600.
when?
And that gap is still growing and growing.
Ouch, that's from the start.
Why?
Oh, 2016. Okay, I see.
From 1963 to 1960.
But did you see the really important thing about that graph?
The one that you were saying about this dip, about how it's going up, and
I thought
then
it said that was white people.
this is white people. Black people's is like. So I mean, like, I guess it might seem like they got closer, but
And that gap
according to this graph, that's because the white people got broker, not because of the black people.
That's funny. But you see how much better they're doing because we suck?
Yeah, because we're broke. Look at.
Yeah, you see how bad we are, so how good they are? Duh.
So what?
That's hilarious.
Never have I ever thought I would be in here with Rod and his brother Mac watching a motherfucking Cory Booker narrated fucking Fox episode.
Yeah, me neither. Hell yeah.
In January 1865, the Civil War was ending. Union General William Sherman and Secretary of War Edwin Stanton gathered a group of 20 black leaders and asked them what the black community needed to build lives in freedom.
Yeah, thanks.
Reverend Garrison Frazier, the leader of the group, answered simply, "The way we can best take care of ourselves is to have land." 4 days after the meeting, Sherman issued Special Field Order Number 15. It set aside hundreds of thousands of acres of land, saying each family shall have a plot of not more than 40 acres of tillable ground. The day before his second inauguration, Lincoln signed a bill that made the plan official. America was almost a very different country.
I'm guessing that didn't actually happen.
Yeah, he got assassinated. Yeah.
But it didn't turn out that way. Weeks later, Lincoln was dead. His successor, Andrew Johnson, quickly reversed course.
Immediately, once we say, okay, equal rights, then you have a white backlash that says, well, what about our rights?
By the end of that year, thousands
All
of free
lives
slaves
matter
every time. It's true.
In just a year after slavery, President Johnson complained about discrimination against whites, quote, in favor of the Negro.
Yikes.
But slaves had been creating wealth for their owners for 246 years.
250 years.
That wealth, whites got to keep. And there's an amazing thing
Good
about
song.
wealth that people who have it know well.
Yeah.
It grows across generations. Just ask Jay-Z.
I bought some artwork for $1 million.
2 years later, that shit is $2 million. And that shit worth $8 million.
I can't wait to give this shit to my children.
Yeah.
One thing it says is that wealth begets wealth. Turn 1 million into 8. Raise your hand if you want to take that deal.
It doesn't take a risky Picasso-sized bet to see wealth grow dramatically. It just takes time. If you live in a stable country and can invest long-term, values generally go up. That's why you need to know about compounding interest.
Facts.
Imagine you took $100 and invested it in 1863. The average annual inflation-adjusted return in the U.S. stock market has been around 7%. The next year, it's worth a bit more, and a bit more, and a bit more. Today, that $100 would be worth more than $3.5 million.
Inflation!
Yeah. African Americans have a lot less money than whites. They're far more likely to be unemployed, and studies show employers still discriminate. But even if we manage to close those gaps right now, centuries of inequality have already compounded, most powerfully through land and housing.
Usually,
This is what you were talking about, John.
Any wealth is captured as through property.
For the American middle class, home equity accounts for around 2/3 of wealth.
Oh shit.
So if you're a white American,
That's a bad
you're
bet.
likely to have parents or grandparents with a story like this.
My parents bought a house probably now 50 years ago, paid $14,000 for it then, and it is worth now probably about $600,000 to $700,000.
Most people don't understand the power of housing, of where you live, of what opportunities exist in that community.
The government played a huge role in making that happen.
Of course.
During the Great Depression,
Always.
almost half of all city homeowners were in default.
Men are sitting in the parks all day long, out of work, muttering to themselves.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt took action with the New Deal.
By providing for the easing of the burden of debt.
And so the New Deal unleashes mortgage credit to the population.
The American dream and owning a home became synonymous. But the new Federal Housing Administration wouldn't insure mortgages in areas it decided were too risky.
And the way that risk is calculated is by race.
A black family moving in was seen as a threat to housing prices.
Do you think a Negro family moving here will affect the community as a whole?
I think that, well, the property values will immediately go down if they are allowed to move in here in any numbers.
So when the FHA...
God, I want to pause so bad right now because that really fires home a point. That fires home the point that the institution itself, the system, has this built into it, like cooked into it, where it's like, yeah, we have a housing market. Does our housing market discriminate? Well, are you black?
Well, I mean, they're telling
this
it in a
was
very...
This was a long time ago.
Well, I mean, this is also stuff that people do now. Redlining is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, maybe back then they were doing it because it was black. Like, you were black.
Maybe we've
but
gotten
now
some racism out of the institutions. But
well, it's still proportionately the black neighborhoods are the ones that get redlined. But they're not necessarily doing it because they're black. Because if you have the money, they'll give you the fucking loan. It's because you're poor. Because you don't have any money. It's because you live in a poor neighborhood and you don't have any money that they're not giving you a loan. It has nothing to do with that. You just so happen to be a lot of black people in this neighborhood. Again,
so
it's
like
because too few black people fall in the good categories and too few black people fall in the bad categories.
It's kind of like...
Or too many fall in the bad categories.
It's kind of like a one hand washes the other thing. It's like, I'm poor and I'm black. So my housing arrangement, even if I wasn't black, if I was poor, or even if I was black and I wasn't poor, like both of those things. Now, there are some rich black people that move into white neighborhoods, but...
Well, but I mean, they're saying, no, at this time, too, this is why the cultural difference
This is the institution.
The cultural
difference.
difference is so important because these people does your property value actually go down if a black person moves in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But that's the prevailing narrative.
So that's exactly
therefore,
what
that's what happens. And this is why I'm always saying controlling the narrative is so important. If you make this a black versus white or whatever, then that's the prevailing narrative, and that's how it plays out for real. Is that people think that black people are something different in some way.
Right.
Because black people are like, we're so different, and then everyone's like, well, they're different. And it's like, well, or anybody who tries to differ themselves based on their race is setting yourself up for failure. Because
getting rid of those tribes is a good idea, man.
I think it is in 2020. I mean, you know what I mean? Maybe not so much.
I mean, we are trying to create our own quote unquote like tribe here, but it's not really like that. It's just like we're trying to put something out to the world and see if people agree or like it.
Yeah.
It's not so much that be one of us, be one of the average intellect guys with dangerous opinions.
I definitely.
It's not about like jump behind our train and gather steam and change the system. It's like, here's some ideas. Someone,
you
please.
should think about them though. That's what I say. That's why I say they're dangerous ideas, right? You know what I mean? That's why I love it. It's like you should really think about these ideas and
we should be able to talk about them openly too.
Yeah,
so
we should really be looking into this stuff.
Test the fence, because like the velociraptors.
The numbers they'll blow you away, and the things you can learn from actually digging deep into this stuff can blow you away.
Shore loans. The neighborhoods with more black families were colored in red.
Redlining is not a...
That's what you're talking about.
Metaphor.
Redlining.
Redlining, yeah. Maps drawn where entire neighborhoods were redlined off.
So this is systemic for sure.
Racism became a justification for more racism.
If 2/3 of America's middle class wealth is in the form of home ownership, that opportunity to own a home has not just been excluded.
Federally enforced segregation affected every part of life. The jobs you could access, where your children went to school, how safe they were, and whether your home increased in value. It wasn't until 1968 that housing discrimination was outlawed.
Fair housing for all human beings is now a part of the American way of life.
But that didn't mean housing discrimination ended. Consider what it took for Cory Booker's family to get their house in 1969.
So my parents began looking for homes, but finding just odd things happening, where real estate agents, if they saw them beforehand, they would only show them homes in African-American communities. And if it was a house in the white neighborhood, my parents would be told, this house is already sold.
Booker's parents set up a sting operation with a civil rights group. The next time they were turned away, a white couple arrived and made an offer on their behalf.
Nice.
The bid was accepted, and on the day of the closing, the white couple did not show up. My father did. And the real estate agent, so angry, stands up and punches my dad's wife. Literally, they're fighting, scrambling. And there was a dog in the corner, and he sicked the dog on my father. So my father's now trying to fight off a big dog. The window was smashed, but eventually things settled, and the real estate agent was desperate and started begging my father, you don't want to move here, your people are not here. He was so afraid that one black family would move in and somehow it would destroy his business and drive down real estate rates.
Cory Booker and his parents ended up getting that house, and that house helped build his future.
It built wealth incredibly. My father rolled into another house in the same town, an even bigger house, and going from poverty to being in very comfortably in the middle class.
Shot callers. You see those windbreakers?
Story. 100 years of discrimination since slavery left a huge home ownership gap. By the 90s, banks and politicians realized what that meant. An opportunity.
Discrimination is patently immoral, but it is now increasingly being seen as unprofitable.
In the 90s, the government made a push to open up the mortgage market.
Only in the 90s here, though. It's crazy. That's crazy.
Black home ownership started ticking up. It looked like the wealth
I
gap
just want
might
you to
start
remember
closing
that
at long last.
the shit that Bill Clinton does is the shit that sets up 2008.
What they want is the regular loans that everyone else got.
There come those unintended consequences. Fucking damn those motherfuckers.
Subprime mortgages by
for
race.
real, bro.
Subprime loans. A loan that starts out cheap and gets much more expensive for borrowers with lower credit.
Because they always trying to set them
But
up.
1 in 5 black borrowers with good credit still ended up with a subprime loan.
I was a
That's
loan
fucked up.
officer at Wells Fargo in their subprime division.
People who had the resources still ended up with subprime
Yeah,
loans
she's
because they were
saying
black.
that black people
Subprime
lose.
loans. A loan that starts out cheap and gets much more expensive for borrowers with lower credit. But 1 in 5 black borrowers with good credit still ended up with a subprime loan.
I was a loan
And that's
officer
just
at Wells
04 to
Fargo
08.
in their
Did you see
subprime
that?
division.
Yeah.
So Beth heard the comment.
But what we know about this with the Matthew Cox situation and stuff is 04 to 08, they were trying to push everybody into these more risky type
Subprime
loans.
mortgages
Yeah,
and
they
shit, yeah.
Right,
because they were making more money
the
on those.
incentives,
We're trying to make
the
Wall Street
incentives
money.
were terrible. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it might seem like they were getting pushed that way because they were black or whatever, but they might have just been also pushing them that way because
They were
saw an
seeking
opportunity.
poor people. They were looking for people that
they could
wouldn't
even
understand the
convince
loans.
the fact that
Yeah.
they were poor. So even if they were like,
So it had nothing to do with them being
they
black
might be
at
like,
all.
Well,
this is
they were just easier targets because they were black. It's not that
It
they
might
had nothing
be
to do with
less
it. It was a
than
factor.
educated about
Yeah.
that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, they fall into the group of less educated.
Facts.
Again, not black, just less educated.
Poor of intellect.
Yeah,
Right,
facts.
right.
They were termed wealth building seminars, and that was about.
Because that was the one thing I have been taking from this too is like, yo, they already proved though, if you anywhere along the line, if you could gain the grasp of compounding interest and how powerful that was, you could have started building wealth for yourself almost from nowhere. I mean, because
many black people did.
You weren't able to buy a house maybe, but you could have bought stocks, or there's other types of things that you might have been able to buy that would have gained in
I
value.
mean, that's a very complicated system that didn't have a lot of black people in it for a long time. I don't
That's
know
true.
if they got into it in the 80s or
That's
90s
true.
or if they were back into the 60s and 70s. I don't know if like ex-slaves got into the stock market.
That's
I don't
true.
have my facts together, but I would assume that's a boys' club.
But I know this
these
much.
other institutions.
I mean, my mom's a middle-class white woman, and she understood interest better than most, but she didn't understand it like a rich white person does. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So,
yeah, if you have money,
right.
you understand. That's why they
Right,
say-
and that's what's helping
Bro,
me
have you ever
climb my
seen-
way out of poverty is by understanding compounding interest. You know?
Rich people be like, yo, you get 8 cans of fucking mayo for this $12 deal. I'm getting all 8, baby.
Yeah.
They get the store brand, too.
The minister of these churches thought this was a great idea, something to help the parishioners in the community.
The bank would give the
Ghetto
church
loans.
a donation for each parishioner who ended up getting a mortgage.
So the people in the congregation didn't realize the loan officer they were talking to was only going to sell them a subprime loan, even if they had 800 credit scores.
800 credit scores? Jesus Christ.
Market breakdown, worst financial crisis since World War II.
Fueled by mortgage lending that wasn't sound or responsible.
Led
Thanks
by
to the government.
borrowers of high-risk subprime loans. Black communities lost 53% of their wealth.
That's a good point that I would love to make after this too.
Well, they keep making it seem like these things only happen to black people. I'm like, this is happening to everybody that got a
Well, no,
subprime
this is
loan.
helping black people overwhelmingly though. But you're right though, the intervention.
Yes, I agree with you that all the tribes are affected by
Right, this is happening to all the people that
ridiculous
had a subprime
system.
loan.
Yeah, the ridiculous system is oppressing all of us.
There wasn't some kind of vision or plan to try to help those folks get back on their feet.
Many of the biggest
Homes that
mortgage
they couldn't
lenders in the
afford.
country settled discrimination lawsuits. Although it denied targeting black borrowers, Wells Fargo agreed to pay $175 million.
Excuse me?
Unlike in FDR's New Deal,
And if you understand economics, it's much easier than trying to convince them that you were doing that to just pay them the goddamn money because you don't have time for that. You're running a business.
It's a lot of fuck you money.
Exactly. Like, yeah, fuck you. I was racist. Whatever. Get out of my face.
175 million fuck you dollars is a lot of that's a lot of fuck you dollars.
I mean, Samsung paid Apple in pennies.
Government's $440 billion program to address the housing crisis mostly didn't go to homeowners. The assistance and a single viral clip triggered a backlash.
How many of you people want to pay for your neighbor's mortgage that has an extra bathroom and can't pay their bills? Raise their hand. How about we all? President Obama, are you listening? We're thinking of having a Chicago Tea Party in July. All you capitalists that want to show up to Lake Michigan, I'm going to start organizing.
Damn, hit that bitch live on US.
If we were to go to
live on television,
yeah, hit him with the live.
Whites and blacks have the same amount of educational achievement, it would lower the racial wealth gap somewhat minimally.
And maybe not even that much.
The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis did a study that came up with finding that white college graduates over a couple of
because college definitely doesn't make you rich.
Increased dramatically. As one might expect, black college graduates over the same period of time, their wealth actually decreased.
The reason isn't that graduates made very different amounts of money. It was how they spent it.
It's much more likely to be the case that an African American college graduate is the most successful in their family network, and therefore relatives ask them for help, and they give it. That doesn't mean that white college graduates are less charitable or less giving or anything like that. It just means that they're like others in their network.
African Americans were wealth for 246 years. For 100 more years, a patchwork of laws excluded them from building.
That's that 100 years I was talking
and
about.
discrimination.
There's some stuff that they're not telling you that happened in that 100 years.
So large
Agreed.
over so many years.
It's a broad stroke. So is the slavery one.
Right.
There's like a war in there. You know, nothing crazy. There's nothing crazy. Just a couple wars.
400 years, there's like a war, like smack dab in the center of that.
Yeah.
Like a really big one.
It's like a big one that kind of is about that, what that word is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reparations. How much are we talking about here, Ta-Nehisi?
Well, we don't actually know, although I will take a check on behalf of myself.
Is anyone on this
Of course you will.
Yuck.
for African Americans? Are you?
The Bible says we shall be and must be repairers of the breach. And a breach has occurred. We have to acknowledge that.
Do we have to acknowledge with the
We
money?
do, but not with
We have
money.
to
Acknowledge it, but we don't have to reparations. If you gave reparations to everybody that was a descendant of a slave, you probably give money to everybody.
When there's still so many wounds that have not been addressed.
This is something that started with slavery, but it's never diminished over time. And that's because
Not true.
government policy
Thank you.
circumstances for the wealth gap. It's the Billie Holiday song, right? Them that's God shall have, them that's not shall lose.
Well, it says that in the Bible too.
Whenever this issue of compensatory or preferential treatment for the Negro is raised, some of our friends recoil in horror. The Negro should be granted equality, they agree, but should ask for nothing more. On the surface, this appears reasonable, but it is not realistic. For it is obvious that if a man enters the starting line of a race,
I hate this fucking line.
after another man,
It's true, though.
first would have to perform some incredible feat in order to catch up.
Especially if the first man was used as the shoes for the
That's a good point. I like that addition though.
That's funny.
He said unless the first guy was used as the shoes and then he took them off halfway through. You're all used up and tired, like smelling like feet.
You run the race now.
Actually, it's as if he took off the shoes and then threw them back to the start. He was like, all right, you go now.
That was a very informative video.
It was highly. I feel like we were so much more educated on that.
I mean, I don't really want to have to sit down and watch it now, but...
but give me, though, yeah.
Yeah, because I'll send it to you guys, because it's a longer video. Like, there's not, like, a nice 15-minute one where he talks about specifically what I want him to talk about. But, yeah, there's a video where, like, he talks about...
Am I? Let me.
Autofocus might be.
There's a video that where Thomas Sowell talks about the different things that they
turn my video off and come back. Okay. I'm listening. We're
Okay.
talking about Thomas. What's his name again?
Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, I looked him up. I think the first.
Yeah,
time.
I know. He told me that you were like, that man is crazy, and I was like, he's kind of he says some very against the grain shit.
He's outlandish for sure.
But yeah, he explains a lot of stuff that just blew my mind, like talking about how black people were actually like coming up, like their incomes were rising much higher before the 1960s than after the 1960s. They were holding, because the same sort of things happened in South Africa and apartheid, where like you had all these laws that said, like during, like it resembled Jim Crow, where you had all these laws that said black people aren't even allowed to be hired in this industry, and yet in many places the overwhelming majority of the employees in that industry were black, because economically there weren't any minimum wage laws or anything like that, so the cost to discriminate fell on the business owner, and so he was like, I don't give a fuck. You might not even like black people, but you're gonna hire them because they'll work for cheaper.
This is what I was talking about with immigrants too, like like Mexican immigrants and things. Like,
right, that's why they get the construction jobs, because they're like, I don't pay taxes, so I don't need as much money.
Yeah, exactly.
They're also doing
economically
jobs, like,
easier.
like they're out there picking oranges and that kind of thing, where like it's been shown, like they'll bring in some white dudes and some black dudes and be like, hey, do this job these Mexican dudes are doing, and they do it like at 1/10 the speed.
Yeah,
after one day they all quit
because they don't want it as bad.
Yeah, they don't. Not only do they not want it as bad, they just can't physically compete with these guys out there fucking just shucking these motherfuckers.
Oh, actually, there is this one's not so bad. This one's only 5 minutes long. It's old. It's from the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, we pop off of it. Yeah.
But it's cool because you can see him when he's like younger, and he's like talking about it right in the midst of like when it's all going down. I think it's like
Thomas Sowell. Send it to me.
Yeah. It's Thomas Sowell. He's doing Bill Buckley's show. He just got some show. I don't know what it is. It's back in the day, but
before we pull this counterpoint up, though, can I make a point that I've been?
Before we can talk about the video.
This video. There's one thing I took away from that, like you were saying, big time is the intervention is so key, though, and this is why I'm always I'm still down for everything they're saying about the problem, but I just never with government help. Okay, I'm not.
It doesn't actually help.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm just not with government help for nobody.
Yeah, the only thing they're good at doing is giving out money. That's the only thing.
And then it fucks it up.
Which still doesn't help.
And then it fucks it up. They give it to the wrong people, or never makes it there.
They don't tell them what to do with it when they give it to them.
It gets lost in the bureaucratic system. So they're saying, like you said, the government's intervention in the crisis was creating the subprime mortgage crisis. That was their.
Here's your houses. You're gonna lose them in 10 years.
We're gonna solve, black people not being able to get a house problem by creating the 2008 housing market crash. Okay, that don't make no sense. And the same
they incentivized people like, hey, give all these people houses.
Give these people who shouldn't have these loans. Give them to them.
Just another random example that came to mind. Here in a little bit, here in about 6 more months, we're gonna find out that the government just threw $1 trillion out into the economy for no reason.
No reason.
Just no reason.
No reason.
They just say, everybody here.
Actually, no. To be clear, there was a very good reason. They gave everybody $1 trillion because they told everybody to go inside. That's why they had to give them $1 trillion.
Because they sent them home. So my point is, government intervention is costly, inefficient, and usually doesn't end up with the consequence. Imagine if that was privatized help. You know what I mean? Like the counterpoint that I wanted to make, right, was that's what the government did. Now look what fucking Bill Gates did with polio. Look what Bill Gates did with toilets or anything like that. Look what Elon Musk just did with space. In 40, what was done in 40 years, he did in 10 years. Just scoop, bloop, just out there, right? Why? Because privatized doesn't have to deal with all the bureaucracy. He doesn't have to deal with none of that shit. Hell, that's why Elon Musk won't even take his company public. Because he don't want to have to answer to shareholders and shit. He's like, look, I know what I'm doing. I'm trying to fix space. I'm trying to get us to Mars. I've already set an objective. You know what I mean? I know what I'm doing. I'm efficiently spending all my money to make it. Dude, he started selling his own things. He started other companies in order to fund this adventure. My point being is that type of care can't be elected to somebody.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's passion driven.
That is a really Good point.
You can't elect
You cannot
that
elect that amount of care.
You can't elect that. You know what I mean? You can't get somebody else. I can't even get my friends to care about me that deeply.
For real, they won't even buy my shit.
You know what I'm saying? So,
I can't even use reusable straws yet, man. And this motherfucker talking about like I'm gonna sell my shit and try to get us to Mars.
So, you know, I just think that, like, you know, government intervention very rarely works because the people in the office care about themselves. They don't care about you. But people care. Like, I care about mental health dramatically. Like, I'm trying to make $1 billion. I want to put $1 billion into mental health, you know, reform and research and pushing forward and stuff, you know? So it's like, I would never expect my government to care specifically about mental health in the way I want to, because think about all the other fucking things they gotta care about. How the fuck can they also care about this too? It's just, that's where I think we're fundamentally broken, is that we keep reaching to the government to solve our issues for us, rather than reaching towards ourselves and our own communities and our own leadership.
Yeah, because our government the system is
well, it's being
too big.
It's the problem is that there's too many different kinds of people with different value systems that want different things trying to pull the government in all these different directions. And so it can't get anything done because it's trying to do everything.
Who controls
5 points for this man?
That's all I'm saying is I'm saying like who controls lobbies? Because like lobbyists are like corporations. Now you can say there's some unions, there's some workers' rights.
No, but they're
politicians.
But
they're organizations.
Special
like,
interest.
They hire those
special
lobbyists.
interest groups. Okay, so like I would say they have fundamentally way more sway and power over our politicians, because they're the ones who are literally going into their offices every day and being like, Enron or Shell or Duke Energy or whoever.
Or hey Bob, you remember that shit we did for you?
Hey, you remember that party?
You remember that thing we gave?
Remember that one?
Yeah,
with
that
that
millions you got with them strippers and them whores.
So you see what I'm saying? Like it's like we the people, this idea that we can vote and we have so much influence and we can vote, and we can make sure our representatives do the things that we want. No, not true, bro. I'm not. No,
well, Dave Chappelle said that point the best, I think. I don't think anybody will make that point any better.
George Carlin makes it a good point. So it's
I don't know. I've heard both of them, but Dave Chappelle's hit it on the head, because he was talking about when he was in Ohio voting and he saw all them dusty white folks voting for Trump, and he was like, "You idiots! He's not voting for you. You're poor. He's working for me."
He's voting.
He's working for me. He's not working for you.
Yeah, that's very true.
Very true. Yes.
Because I think it's like Mark said, it's always been a class issue more than it's been a race, because
agreed.
You get awfully comfortable when you're rich. That's what it's so funny. Like we even so privileged as American society to sit around and talk about this shit. You know what I mean? Like
having an argument about
our ideas over social media and shit. We're like, you're more privileged. No, you have more privilege.
I have a phone that could download any social media that ever existed. I'm talking to you through a program that
zoomed
internet
30
we're
seconds
zooming.
flat, and then we're just all like,
we're timing our fucking program. So screen. We're in a whole nother level of privilege.
And people are missing it.
We're only 1% of the world. We're so privileged. If you look at our privileges and like weight them up, like
I don't care how broke you are in our society. I don't care how fucked up you are in our society.
You're still in a free Western society.
You are still bossing just by the fact that you could use my toilet. Just that I even have a toilet that you can use.
Dude,
you can walk into McDonald's and get Wi-Fi.
Me and Adesh were walking around today, and this dude, like, we walked under this bridge with tons of homeless people, and they had the city dropped off a porta potty and a like portable washing hand station
finally
for them so that they could take a shit. And I was like, you see, our homeless people have toilets. People who live in homes in other countries don't have toilets. But our homeless people have toilets. I mean, they're not just now doing that. I'm just saying.
I think I might be pro like field sanitation for the homeless
that's
campers.
one thing that I think
I might be pro field sanitation.
Give these people some toilets. Stop shitting in my streets.
I think if you give them the little foot pump hand stations,
that's what it is. Yeah,
that's
what it is.
You know,
it's just it just recycles the same water with soap.
Let's
in it,
go.
You know?
Yeah, let's go. This is a great idea.
I'm for somebody creating that and then the city buying that from them.
Well, they did. That's what I'm saying. This is already a thing.
But so once you start doing contracts, then you start getting into that mafia.
Well, now all of a sudden they start. That's the problem. Is like that's a good idea, but the fucking government's gonna buy one of those porta potties for like $1,000.
But this makes
and it's like, oh, you assholes.
This makes a good argument for regulation and things, or like for having a government. Because who's going to invent products for poor people? Like, who's going to come out here and be like, I just made this new porta potty joint for the homeless and it costs only $9.
I hope the city buys it, Like, that's what they're saying. I hope the city wants to buy this product.
Yeah, why don't you be the city? Because it's not going to be them. And so the only way that homeless or anybody disenfranchised is going to get helped out of charity. That's the only way.
And it's better. It's more efficient.
Which is true, because then, like I said, you actually care. Like you said, you care about field sanitation.
You'll make sure that they get the fucking
your money.
How much did you pay for that plunger?
That fucking field sanitation shit. Yeah. Not getting mixed around in the system, and then hopefully, if the guy that you want gets elected through the lobbyists and all that stuff, then maybe, just maybe, they'll decide to use a little portion of that money to pay for the dolphins that you care so much about. Yeah. It's like...
Or like maybe he's like 50-50 on the issue, and then a lobbyist comes in. He's like, "Hi, I'm from the prison corporation," because all that shit's like fucking, privatized. So he's like, "I'm from Ohio Prisons Incorporated. We've got a $3 million grant from the federal government to take these thousands of prisoners they want in our high-end facility that we're going to build. So why don't you just vote this way?"
Yeah, just push it on this way. Give us this
Here's
contract.
a basket.
We'll kick you
Here's
back.
a friendship basket.
Hey,
you want to be friends?
Hey, what are you going to do after you're done with this, man? You're going to need someone to go
to dinner?
You can only be senator.
What is it, Susan, is it?
You can only be senator for so long. What are you going to do after that, bud?
Yeah.
We got all the super PACs,
I think by the time your run is up, we're going to have a nice position.
Opening up. I mean?
Yeah. I think that might work. I think we might work something out.
Did y'all watch Trial by Media at all on Netflix? It's interesting, bro. Trial by Media, and it's
it's the one about the liars, the professional liars.
No, this is about different high-profile trials that have happened in society, in the media, and how the media was spinning it, and then what actually happened.
How they spin the OJ case and made Mark Furman look terrible.
Right. Media has persecuted people. Like you said, they'll turn... It's even part of their defense sometimes of how they're going to use the media in these really high-profile cases. Mm-hmm. Wait till the George Floyd case go to court. Ooh, buddy! We ain't even begun, folks. Because when
he didn't even die of strangulation. Okay, he didn't even die of strangulation. Okay.
Hold up.
That's literally the argument I'm hearing, bro. I'm literally hearing people make that argument. Bro, he didn't die of strangulation. So I mean, how they're gonna totally get away with it?
Because people don't like to admit that he still gets a defense. You know what I mean? Everybody gets a defense, so you're gonna have to sit there and listen to them.
Everybody's
jury of his peers.
They're supposed to get defense.
Everybody's supposed
so
to.
So you're gonna have to sit there and listen to them argue the other side of why this cop is okay with what he did, and people are gonna be outraged over that, which is dumb. That's
majority of the time there's no conviction. I mean, this is one of those cases where there's probably gonna be a conviction.
I think there will be a conviction this time. I think that because again. Public opinion and public influence.
The judge would be an idiot.
It would be. I think.
He would be an idiot.
I can't imagine a world where the president of the United States is not calling this judge behind closed doors and just saying, "Look,
this man
will go to prison regardless of the situation." I think that's true, and I think that's why people protest this shit, right? Is they want to make sure their outcome comes out.
They're gonna force you to do what they want.
Hey, that's a good point, though. The protests, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll double check the fact on that, but I believe that the government did respond at a national, federal level, the Department of Justice.
Expedited the case.
The Department of Justice did step in and do something as a result. I don't know if it's a direct result of the riots, but I believe that there were demonstrations, and then the Department of Justice.
Because not riots, because protests. Because the government
protests.
will
I think the demonstrations.
To
I think it was before the looting.
Peaceful protests. Like you said, if everybody just doesn't show up to work one day, we already seen what the kind of backlash that'll have on our economy and things like that. So people know, if they don't show up, it's a big deal. And so the government will take note of that. But the point, and that's what everybody's saying, is you don't have to destroy shit to get your point across. But it was able to get the president expedited the case, is what I did hear. So he's how normally it'd be a year or 2 years before this shit even goes to trial and shit. This shit about to happen lickety split.
Yep.
They're about to move this motherfucker on through so we can put this to rest. Yeah. But again, not because he actually cares, but that we need to get this to rest.
We got other shit going on.
Line up with my narrative right now. I need to sweep this aside. Get this shit out of my
November.
That's why that police.
I'm trying to get reelected, bitch. Get this shit out of here.
back to the clip you had of the police chief. He was even speaking on that. He was like, "Let's get this over with.
Yeah.
We're talking. We got a pandemic going on.
Yeah, he's
like,
"We're taxed,
they're all trying
we're
to like
taxed."
sweep this along.
These men
Like, let's
just trying
go,
to
baby.
like kick back, bro. Everybody keeps defending it. This is supposed to be the first weekend we were gonna be open. Now look at us. It's like,
Hey, we're supposed to have soccer coming soon,
don't
right?
kill people. You know, maybe that'll help. But so yeah, I'm not with that government intervention shit.
You guys are currently what, on lockdown right now? 6 p.m.?
We're at curfew. Yeah, we're not allowed outside.
Yeah, technically, as of 3 minutes ago, we are not allowed to go outside.
Can you go on your balcony?
I don't know. It's a curfew, but like I think they just tell you to go home. Like I mean,
Traveling to and from work, seeking or giving emergency care, credentialed media, and the homeless who are sheltering in place are exempt.
so yeah. Well, but it doesn't say that there's any like you'd have to look up if there's
media
like
too. You don't even allow to just be
punishment.
like, yo.
No, you can't just be
citizen
independent.
I got my own
media.
news show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
citizen media. You can't even be out
Yeah,
there.
you want
So-
to talk about some real bullshit.
That's
some
nuts.
real
Yeah, talk
bullshit
about
right
some
there.
fucking discrimination.
Yeah, that's nuts, bro. Like, think about
I'm
how
just
many
saying,
people are
like,
gonna die
if you-
tonight off camera.
Yeah, I can't just go out there and document. Okay, thanks.
No
I
night
guess.
crawling? Like,
Is that for my safety?
That doesn't add up to me. But that's martial
Put
law
that
for
up.
you right there, buddy. That's that's the situation. That's the paramount of the situation is when they deem, for whatever reason they deem. Dude, even people with this conspiracy that they send undercover cops into the protests. You heard about this?
This has been proven to be true on a few cases.
Your
But in this
agent
current one,
provocateur.
I don't think it's agent provocateurs. I don't
Yeah.
believe it has been proven in this particular case. I know it's been shown as a fact. I just don't know if that fact's proven.
So the idea is that they send undercover cops in with
Well, it's
the
not the idea. It's the
protesters.
practice that has been verified
practice.
that's been done before.
That they do,
Yes.
where they send
It has
undercover.
been,
It's been proven. I'm gonna have to see the
On
case
how many cases?
where-
Only
like,
off the top of my head, one or two in like
the 60s
certain
or
cases.
70s or
The
90s?
pipeline.
Oh, the
They had
pipeline
agents
shit.
in there. They had people infiltrate those groups.
I
So
feel
those
that.
are agent provocateurs.
I believe that too, because there's a lot of protests for a lot of
The
different
government
things.
did that, or the company did that?
The CIA.
The CIA.
The company paid the CIA. To
Yeah, it's like if it's not the local police, then I have some.
which one
I
is
have-
which?
But you can see how anybody could do that though, and like that's what people are saying. Like the riots and the looters, they take away from the conversation because those people aren't.
There's
even
video
with
evidence
that
on
shit.
this one.
Yeah,
that
those are
makes it
different
appear.
people. Like
They're
I
like
definitely
with whole
agree. Like
different-
people were telling me like they're
Yeah.
not the same people, and I'm like I know that.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
you are definitely creating a really good environment for looters to successfully loot.
That's facts, though.
And
That's
riot
facts. That's
and
true.
burn shit down.
That's true.
Like hey,
If I was protesting,
And
walking
honestly,
by an
those
auto
protests
zone,
started
and
out
everybody was angry and violent, and somebody busted all the windows and was like, "Let's go!"
Yeah, then you're
people are going to react to that.
Right.
That's provoking an incident, and those
it's
people
the,
should be.
It's the yell
you know,
fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah, that's
it's gonna
I
make
mean,
a-
you have freedom of speech, and then
it's
you
gonna
have shit like that where it's like,
it's gonna start
but
let's
also
fucking
those
kill those
protesters-
pigs. Like,
those
Jesus
were
Christ,
the
bro,
protesters.
settle down.
Like I think the protesters and the rioters mix at points. I don't think that the protesters and the looters are mixing a lot. The rioters and the looters are mixing a little
Well,
bit.
like you
and
said,
the protesters and the rioters
rioting is just
on the extreme end of the protesting. Because those first protests, they burnt down that police station,
Yeah.
and those were protesters.
Yeah.
They stood there with their arms up and shit and took pictures in
And
front
their
of it.
signs and shit.
Some of them didn't even have masks. I was like, bro, aren't you scared that they're gonna come
Like,
back
they're
and
gonna come back.
arrest you?
Like,
Yeah,
when
like
they
they're gonna look at
settle
all of
this
these
down,
photos, motherfuckers. They're not gonna let any of this
People
shit.
I
so
got
I got
robot tarantula spiders right now. I got robot tarantulas coming to your door, buddy.
We're taking notes on this show. If you don't think they're not taking notes on the news, I'm like, yep, get that guy. This one too. You see him?
Spot me.
That
next
guy's got no
fucking
face.
open
Get
up my
some facial
door.
recognition.
on that guy
He's
right
got no
there.
mask on.
Oh,
Spot
you
Minnie
know,
about to come
they're
open my
gonna
bedroom
come
window and be
round
like,
you
"You've
up
been
quick.
served."
Do you want to watch this other 5-minute video?
Yeah, plus that up.
We have with us Mrs. Harriet Pilpel, who's well known to this viewers of this program. Mrs. Pilpel is an attorney with Greenbaum, Wolf and Ernst, a graduate of Vassar and of the Columbia Law School, and very active in a number of liberal and feminist movements. Mrs. Pilpel.
I would like to, for a moment, ask you some questions about the economics of job getting in terms of the blacks versus the whites. The statistics I was able to pull together indicate that at the present time white males make $17,427 on an average basis for the year. Black males make $12,738. White females make $10,244, and black females make $9,476. It is clear from these figures, as indeed I think it's clear to most of us from what we see, that there is a discrimination against blacks and against women in our present system. Since not all blacks will be superior, how would you try to even that out so that there would be some equality of job opportunities?
Yeah, I'm sorry you missed the earlier part of the program when I pointed out that where you find people not represented evenly, that does not show the institutional effect, because almost nowhere in human affairs do you find people evenly represented.
Well,
if you compare comparable people with respect to age, with respect to education, etc., you get a totally different picture, both with respect to blacks and women. Now, the figures that I saw, for example, show more recently that if you take black families where the husband and wife are both college educated and compare them to a white family where the husband and wife are both college educated, the black family is now earning $2,000 a year more. The problem is that very few blacks fall in that category. That when you compare category for category, then we're talking about getting people a decent education. I'm saying that you cannot say that numbers collected at the employer's place of business reflect simply the employer's policies. Those numbers reflect underlying conditions in the whole society, just as numbers collected at a hospital do not show you that the people are sick because they're in the hospital.
No, I would agree with that, but you would also have to agree that generally speaking, women are paid less, for example, for the same jobs as men.
No, I would not. I would not agree with that. If you're talking about women with the same number of years of experience, with the same continuous service, etc., then when I look at that, I don't find that disparity. I find, for example, in many cases, the women are making more, depending upon how you break the data down. The difference with women is between married women and everybody else. That's the real difference.
Well, even as to single women, the Census Bureau statistics, the most recent ones I could find, 1978, say that single men are earning $11,100 and single women are earning $9,300.
Yes, I love the word single that is used. When I did my study, I didn't use single, I used never married. You see, a woman who is single at age 40, having spent 10 or 20 years raising children, is really not quite the same as a man of age 40 who's been working continuously for 20 years.
And the differential she cited is not that great, so it could easily be accounted for by the
Yes, because when I break them down the other way, I did this for the academic world, and there I found the women who are never married, which is the term the way I take it, there they were earning more than the men. And similarly, when the government did data some years ago on women who had been working continuously since high school into their 30s, there you found that they were making slightly more than men of the same description. So the difference is between married women and everybody else. And married men get an extra bonus because their wives take care of many things that enable them to put more time into their careers.
I'm sure you're aware of the fact that there are approximately 15% of all homes in which there is only one wage earner. So that when you talk about women being able to take care of things for their married mate wage earner, the fact is that in the overwhelming majority of American homes, the women also work. And therefore, I don't think your explanation that women have other responsibilities and that that's why they are...
Work can mean part-time work or full-time work. Women do not work full-time to the same extent that men. Part-time workers make less than full-time workers.
Okay.
Yeah, that was informative.
Yeah, I
Good
just like
snapshot
that,
too. 1980, although most of it
Right.
applies today, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, because the exact same problems are happening. So yeah, I just like that it highlights that you have to look more in depth at the data. Like if
He also says you have to look
take
at
the quick
society.
numbers,
Like if you just only blame institutions, but you don't blame society. Like society is what built those institutions. Like,
right? Yeah, they're institutions.
If our
based on
society has a class problem, then obviously we're going to see a class problem within our institutions. And if you're poor, you're just not going to have the same access.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And really that clip is from a much longer, like hour-long video. And in there he also talks about like the minimum wage and how you're actually preventing people from getting started in the job market because you're not really like these beginning level jobs aren't for raising a family on, they're to get you started, when you're like young.
Well,
16,
our society
17.
has moved to a point where, the working class people are just cashiers and retail workers now predominantly. So when you are just a 40-year-old woman with kids and a family, that the only job you have and can get with your education and everything is like retail, we should probably at least make that somewhat livable, or at least match inflation, or even if we're not matching inflation, at least ease it up a little bit on these people.
But I think
let them live their life.
No, I think because the problem with that is that you're incentivizing them to not get any better.
Yeah.
And so what you need to do is you need to teach them skills that are more valuable than just being a cashier.
Yeah.
There's plenty of moms that have 8 children. I mean, bitch, that mom that had 8 kids got her own goddamn TV show just for having 8 kids. So it's not like you can't work and be a mom. Like, there's tons of ways that you can work from home and do all, especially now when you have the internet and all this crazy shit. You could just Amazon drop ship baby goods and make millions of dollars. So that's what I'm saying, is like, we just need to teach people how to work in this new economy.
Teach them about compounding interest.
Yeah, teach them about compounding interest. Teach them about investments and shit, so that they can actually come up and not just remain as a cashier getting paid whatever the minimum wage happens to be at that time, because it's not enough. Like, you can draw these arbitrary lines, like you say 15. Well, why not $100? Why don't we just give everybody $100 an hour and just be done with it? Because then they'll have a livable wage. Oh wait, that's right. We can't just pay everybody $100 fucking an hour. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
you can't afford it.
But if you look at like everything in our society, like as a blip on a graph, like it's like, how much has milk gone in 20 years or 30 or 40 years? How much has eggs gone? How much has bread gone? How much is literally a hamburger, all the way down to the car that I buy, down to the house that I buy? Literally everything has grown at this rate. But then we pay our people at this very slow, flat rate where it's like everything around us is becoming more and more expensive, and we're expected to use debt and credit.
But the minimum wage has risen in response to that, though.
Yeah, they
to
keep changing the
$7 from like $4. So I mean, like, we had one bump.
I mean, you're talking about the federal minimum wage, but I mean, here in California, the minimum wage is $15. And they're still complaining that it's not enough, because it isn't. Because in California, the minimum, like, no matter how much you pay people on the minimum wage, you can't convince people to give them enough per hour to pay to live in LA, because to live in LA is too expensive because of all the goddamn regulations
Well,
that
it's
are
California,
preventing
not LA, right? Like, it could be like Lancaster.
The
or
California
some
in
other place.
general is expensive. But my thing is, ask yourself, like I kind of get where Marcus is at with this. Is like, you have to ask yourself, why is that job valued so low? Because it's not like all jobs are valued the same, right? Like, other jobs are worth more money. How come those jobs are worth more and those jobs are worth less?
Like, could they just work other jobs like that just weren't retail, that were just as like, or does every person who works that level of a job and that 20 hours a week or whatever to help their family, like, do they all have to have college degrees to be successful?
I mean, our society's proving you don't really quickly. You could just grab a YouTube career real quick or some shit.
Just slap up a vlog of you and your kid, like just you taking care of your kids, and then there you go. You gotta,
We're sure, but my point is that's the thing is it's always been interesting to me what society values, because in the end it's us that is placing the value on these things. Yeah. I say, how the fuck can they even afford to pay all these football players this amount of money?
Yeah,
like, how is that even possible, right? And
how do you just bail out $1 trillion into the economy? Yeah,
but
like,
it's us.
How is that even
we
real?
vote with our dollars. We decide. And so my point is, I don't think that governments are strong or smart enough or even able. That's the thing when I look at the fundamental philosophy of it. Things don't get assigned random value like people are trying to act like they do. Like, things aren't just like
there's no
arbitrarily like added to things. Like, this mug is $35. It happens in a way like that, but there's things that have to be accounted for in balance, right? How much does it cost in the materials? How much of the time does it take? The skill level in which it requires to make this style of mug.
How much is your brand worth?
Your brand and your story. All these things have to add up to the value of this mug, though, right? You can't just go in and be like, my mug's worth $50. Because I'm like, well, why? Because this dude's got a mug and it's very similar to your mug, and it's not $50. And you have to now prove and convince to me that it's worth. So I say this. I see the same for work too. Like I said, what makes LeBron James so much more valuable in society than the cashier, right?
The fact that we all pay him millions of dollars.
That's one. Also, how many LeBron James are there out here? I mean, like 10 maybe? You know what I'm saying? How many cashiers are there? Everybody, I guess, is potentially a cashier, you know? And so it's like, of course it's valued less. And there's more. Why are diamonds so much more expensive than grass? Well, I mean, like, let's look at them. What do I got to do to get a diamond? What do I got to do to get some grass? It's like, you know, it adds up. And so this idea that we can just keep pushing values of things. Anyway, the dollar bill. They'd be like, the dollar bill is worth X amount of dollars. And this amount of dollars. I'm going to hold it here. And I'm going to move it this way. It's like, y'all are crazy. All of a sudden, this house of cards one day, y'all going to blow the wrong way. And all that shit going to tumble in your face. You know, because you can manipulate it, but I don't think you can manipulate it with efficiency.
I think our government has not shown me the trust that I would not believe they would start a war to stimulate the economy. So it is a little bit scary.
They didn't do that?
I mean, you can argue either way with, you know, with different points in our history, but those points did not have internet.
I'm very much of the idea that George W. Bush started a war to stimulate the economy, in most particular his own economy. His
own personal economy.
But I'm still, I mean, the jury's still out there on this because, like I said, made my joke earlier, we didn't get them terrorists. Obviously, terrorism is still doing its thing out here in 2020. So that whole war was for naught. Didn't work. It didn't do anything. And so I don't know why we started that. I don't know why we continue to stay there on a day-to-day basis today.
Because we got these mother of all bombs that we need to be dropping on fucking cave systems. Let's go, dude. We got Moabs.
It's crazy.
What, are we gonna just let them sit there?
Yeah, we paid for them.
Come on, man.
We gotta use them.
Me and you, we all paid for those. All right, we
did. We paid for these
Moabs. I want to see them blow up.
We gotta go over to the Middle East and drop
them.
Gotta
use them. What else are we gonna do with them? Just hold on to them? Yeah. So I'm definitely, but it's fascinating because there's one thing I hope that maybe we can talk about, maybe now or maybe in the next episode, but some of the democratic views that I have, or like but progressive views. Like one thing that I've been hearing a lot more out of the progressive camp that I'm like with is, we spend so much money on force, on war, on policing, on just force. And very, very little money on, infrastructure. I was just talking about why it's so dope to be here. Like, in my Instagram, I posted some videos of it. It actually came from the Bill Gates docu, which is fascinating, the Inside Bill's Brain. I've heard some contrary information to that docu lately that does make me, I don't know, you know what I mean, iffy and about what his intentions are. Nonetheless, they're talking about life in Senegal, in Western Africa and deep Africa, and bringing up the point that 1 in 3 people around the world don't have toilets, right? That's crazy because, like I said, being broke, imagine being broke or persecuted or poor in a poor country where there is nobody to help. There are no rich people to ask for favors.
There's no government bringing
There's no government that's going to come and help you do any of that stuff, right? That's insane to me. And so I would love to see more money going into improving everybody's life. It doesn't matter who you are. Infrastructure helps every single person who lives here. Whether you're rich or poor or broke, having a nice, clean, easy to use bridge, having a dope-ass water system, having efficient transportation, all these things, blanket, I don't care if you're poor or not, having a free train is dope as fuck. You see what I'm saying? Having these types of infrastructure, and we're not spending a lot of time or money on that, so, according to the lefts. I don't know the truth, but I did see this person the other day was at this park in Pennsylvania, and it's this bridge park, and we also saw the bridge to nowhere. These are all bridges that were built sometime with some type of efficiency and then crumbled over time, right? How many bridges do you think we have out there now that are doing the same thing? And we're not paying attention to that because it doesn't necessarily matter at the moment.
Well, we need to fly we need to fly drones over these countries and drop bombs on
you know
people.
what I mean? We need to fight Afghanistan, and we need to have military.
And you could say
presence
like,
here,
well,
there,
you
and
know,
everywhere.
like money's allocated to each thing and blah 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 blah. It's like fuck
It's
that,
wild.
man. Like fix our system, man.
It's wild.
Don't give me excuses. I want the system fixed. I want my roads not to crumble. And people can say, well, you know, the best way to do that is get rid of the government. I'm here to tell you I don't know the best way to get my roads fixed. I just know that as a human being living and driving on these roads every day, I mean, I don't have the money to do it. I don't have an asphalt machine. I don't have a crew of Mexican immigrants.
I can
don't
tell
have
you.
any
get
of
all
that.
those things though.
Yeah, I was about to say I can tell you how to get your road fixed. You just got to pay somebody, and they'll fix it. You pay somebody to fix your road, and they'll fucking fix it. That's the
But do you have to pay for every single aspect of your life? If you're paying for the road you drive,
I mean, you
on,
do that
or
now.
You already do
You
that.
pay 35% of your
You
income.
already,
just-
you
Yeah, but you're
already
giving it-
pay for it. You
but I'm
already
saying
pay
like,
for it.
yeah, but that's the thing. We're paying into getting our roads fixed, and they're not being fixed. So the system is broken. I'm paying tax money, but driving on broken roads. So I am paying somebody.
Right.
I can afford it right now. I'm
What
saying
would,
like
what would you
live-
do if you were paying somebody for a subscription service and they weren't giving it to you?
You would stop paying.
You would unsubscribe. You would
unsubscribe
from that service. You're like, you
But how do you stop paying taxes?
You 3 months.
How do you
like
not
Dave
pay
Chappelle
taxes?
said, don't like.
You can't stop paying taxes though.
Well, that's our point.
That's what we're trying to tell you.
saying.
That's what we're
That's why
saying.
it's
It's like the
sketch.
fact that you like, and here you've come to the answer, John Allen. You can't stop paying your taxes. It's not an opt-in, opt-out
That's the
system,
problem.
and that's why they're fucking you.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah, I
could
agree.
easily go get
I
your
agree.
road fixed if it wasn't a
100%.
monopoly that the government controlled.
It's true.
Because economics is true. Monopolies
shit,
monopolies are not good.
I'll come fix your road right now. Yeah, pay me $10,000. I'll come fix your road right now.
I'll learn how to do. You give me 10, I'll give some, like you said, some Mexican guys 5, and then I'll rent the machine,
do it.
and then boom, there it is. Your road's fixed.
But you know what's actually been fascinating with me is finding out that is we were talking about fire departments, right? And we all had kind of agreed that the police force can't be privatized because it's a force, but a fire service could, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of like, what happens if your neighborhood fire department isn't performing up to par, right? Either A,
What if
they're
there's
too
a
broke.
fire outside of that neighborhood fire department and that's not my jurisdiction?
Well, okay.
But that's bureaucracy, though.
But that's
right?
what you would do if you've got a kid and you're looking to move, you would look at the schools in the neighborhood. And if the schools aren't good enough, even though you find a really good house that you all really like, but if the schools aren't good, that's going to play into your
would
decision
look
of where
into
you
the fire
live.
department.
So you would just look at the fire department. You'd be like, is this a good fire department? Like you would ask people, how are the schools? How's the fire department?
But this wasn't any my point. My point being was if your fire department was substandard, I could just be like, all right, you know what? Tomorrow sign out my front lawn. Fire department, call me. And we all know in this neighborhood Jim sucks at this, right? Y'all pay me. I promise you I'm gonna be there on time. I'm gonna show up. Look at my truck. I just bought this shiny new fucking fire truck, right? It's my only one, so I'm only servicing these 6 blocks right now.
Yeah,
My
I got
point being-
a short number of
but
clients.
but you don't have to. Right now, could you do that? Could you just roll up in here and be like, "This is the new LA Fire Department"? Fuck
Yeah,
no.
you can't opt out of
no.
the fire department.
Hell no. I'd be like, "Yo, hey, I'm tired of cops killing our society. We're now switching over to we can't use cops as a good example because, like you said, you switch over to so and so's."
Yeah, I'm not.
They got a military.
If I'm in the parking lot and Wendy's taps on my door and tries to give me a ticket with coupons in it, we're going to war. I'm sorry, man, but like I'm hitting the fucking streets.
Come back to Wendy's. Hey, that's how they did me. That's how they did me out off the river down in San Antonio. What was the river?
Yeah.
I wasn't in San Antonio. I was in New Braunfels, and they got the New Braunfels River or whatever floating off there, boy. And I got arrested the day before I was supposed to go back to Iraq, John. I'm pretty sure you might have remembered this. I
remember
on
this story.
Leave, and I get arrested the day I'm supposed to go back, fucking around with OG Ron C.
OG Ron C.
OG
Always
Ron
a good
C,
story
Ron
where
C,
OG
bro.
Ron C
Gotta be
shows up.
good, this one. And so we're drinking out there, and I got myself. Yeah, let me admit it. I was my fault.
Drinking at what age? What age are you?
I was like 9. I was 20. Oh, that's what I was. I was 20. Because I distinctly remember, I was like, I'm so slick. I'm on the river. I have no ID. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's no way they're going to be able to ID me. So he's like, hey! And I look over, and like, this is so stupid out here. Hey! I look over there, and there's a cop, and he's looking dead at me. I'm on the river, by the way, I'm floating. He's standing on the bank, full uniform and everything, right? And he's like, you, come here. Like I said, I'm looking, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm slick. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to talk my way out of this.
Oh, no, that's a mistake.
What the fuck is that? Why did I just be like, huh? Me? Who? What? That guy? That guy? Hey, that cop. Sorry, I'm too far. I gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta go. My car's down at the other end of this thing. I gotta.
It just floated on down the river, bro. He wasn't gonna jump in for me. I know he would never have jumped in that river to get me. Because the only I pull over, I swim over there, and I have the whole cooler of beer because the rest of these fuckers have house arrest ankle bracelets on, so they're not nowhere to be found. Right? They float on by. I got the cooler. I pull up. He's like, hey, how old are you? I'm like, 22? He's all like, all right, well, here, come on out of the river. I'm like, what? All right. I'm still slick. I'm like, I ain't got no ID. He's like, when's your birthday? I'm like, April 12th, 1986, right? And now, it's my birthday. I just, minus a couple numbers, I'm being slick. I'm quick. It adds up. He's like, all right, well, what's your name? Sherrod Sloan, All right, cool. What's your social security number? And he's like, all right, wait right here. Motherfucker goes back and he runs my shit. I didn't know they could do this. I didn't even know this at the time. I didn't think that. Didn't even remotely run up to me that he has a whole computer that can access every human being.
Every piece of information that's ever, the entire world.
Like stamp number they gave you at birth. I forgot about that. So he looks me up and he's like, they come back, of course, and they're like, oh yeah, we got a Sherrod Sloan, but error on the birthday, 1987. And this fool's like, oh, gotcha. That's lying to a police officer. So they get me for falsifying identification and minor in consumption, right? These are 2 misdemeanor offenses. Well, one's a ticket offense, and then he's like lecturing me. He's like, well, if you would have just not lied, you would have just got an MIC and been able to keep on going. But since you lied, now I'm taking you in. I'm like, well, come on, nigga. If you was going to cut me with you could easily just cut me with 2 tickets. You'd be like, hey, you almost went to jail today. So, like, don't act like you're not. If you have the choice, don't tell me you have the choice. Just send my ass to jail.
Yeah, just send me to
don't
jail.
Tell me.
Don't tell me you're going to choose to be a dick.
Yeah, right? Facts.
It wasn't my choice, okay?
Well,
come on,
you played me, you're going to jail. So, anyways, this is not the point of my story. I show up. First of all, they didn't arrest me and take me to the station. They called up the homie, and they have the van that just drives around the block, okay? And they pick up everybody making all these arrests. So I'm just riding around for like an hour in the van.
You're in the paddy
like
wagon.
6 other homies. Yeah. We pull up to the jail. I'm no shoes, no shirt. I came off the river. So I'm just in there. What do I see all day sitting in there? Motherfuckers just coming off the river, bro. Just non-stop. Just other bitches with their titties hanging out there. Just teaching, I don't know what the fuck. Drunk motherfuckers all the way down to me's. And I was like, oh shit, it's a fucking scam. These motherfuckers are just hanging out at the river, farming the river for resources and like money. I was like, dude, I paid that ticket and they never even charged me with the fucking crime. You know that the DA, the district attorney, dropped the fucking case. That is extortion, my niggas, by the police of New Braunfels right in my face. I sat there and watched it. I said, it only took me like after about 4 hours of watching all these people. I said, every single person I've seen arrested tonight came off that river. That don't make no goddamn sense. Either the river is like systemically like fucked, or like it's just full of hooliganism, or hey, police are sketch. You don't want privatized police, like you said.
They just want they need their money beans.
Like they did with the prison system. Yeah, like they did with the prison system.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
that's hilarious.
So funny.
That's a hilarious story.
Maybe that's a good story to wrap it up.
Yeah, no, this has been an absolutely illustrious first episode.
Yeah, it's really
I've gotta
fun.
say.
It's been funny.
I really had a good time. I can't wait to improve the quality as we go on. Have some background malfunctions, and John Allen too. We're gonna get you with a setup. It's gonna be fire.
Yeah, proper green screen.
But 3 dudes. Those are pretty dangerous ideas, I'd say.
Yeah, we talked about the dangerous.
Yeah, I distinctly remember you kept trying to push us onto tarantula robot dogs. I remember that.
That's a dangerous idea. Think about it, man.
It's possible.
Fucking putting automation and AI into the police force is a dangerous motherfucking idea, dude.
Hey, if you listen out there, I would highly encourage you to go through and look at some of those resources that we posted. Watch those videos for yourself and shit, all that.
Yep. We got some good media content.
Right. We definitely clipped all of those.
Juicy list.
We definitely clipped all those things out of context. So
for everybody.
There's articles that go with those things. So, like, you know, there's things for you to read now. You got homework now.
Very anecdotal. All right. All right. We out.
Yeah.
We out.
Later.